Yes, it also is right up front.
care of yourself.
I am.
Did they reach out to you ahead of time? Did they reach out to you ahead of time?
Yes.
Well, when they do that, they should take on that.
Okay. Hey, Kurt, did you get the email from me?
Yes, I did. I have it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I'd like to call the High Speed Rail Authority Board meeting to order. I think it would be good. I have a note here that says we will be voting by roll call from here on out, and that's a great idea. But how about if, Mr. Morshed, you do a roll call?
Okay, check.
Thank you.
Chairman Pringle,
Here.
Tom Umberg,
Here?
Russell Burns, David Crane, Rod Dearlon, Sr., Fran Flores,
Here.
Richard Katz, Judge Kopp, Lynn Shank.
Here.
Very good. With that, we do have a quorum.
Look for members of the public.
Yes, we'll get to that. So with that, call the meeting to order, and would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Richard Katz.
Place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item on our agenda is that of comments from the public. We have a number of folks who have submitted cards to be heard. I'd like to welcome these members forward. First off, Supervisor Henry Perea. There you are. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, so I'll get you that point at the appropriate time. All right, so I'll just call those that have not identified an item. Mr. Al Sheeter.
Good morning. My name is Al Sheeter, and I'm a part of a family that owns the Mordecai Ranch in Madera, California. For 7 generations, our family members have been washing the dirt of our land off their hands at the end of a long day. Our intentions are to have an 8th generation and a 9th generation and beyond continue this legacy. Our families believe in public transportation, and we understand that the airports and roadways linking San Francisco and Los Angeles and other major population hubs in California are not capable of handling future or even present transportation needs. So we have a rare opportunity for high-speed rail to become more than a symbol of modern technology, but a means of effective delivery of transportation services that will serve our state for decades, perhaps centuries to come. Some of the proposed paths of the high-speed rail greatly concern our family. We do not wish to see the path of the train cut a wide swath through the most productive farmland in the United States by developing totally new routes. Rather, place the rail routes near existing transportation corridors, utilizing services such as access roads, power, and communication lines that are already in place. There is no way to mitigate the loss of prime agricultural soil. Once the bleeding starts, development on or near prime farmland becomes death by 1,000 knives for farmers and their families. Our family urges you to keep the importance of our state's farming community in your mind as you go forward with the development of the high-speed rail system. Please do not destroy one of California's greatest treasures in the process, the family farm. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sheeter, and thank you for living within the 3-minute rule of public comment, even without being told. That's very nice.
Oh, here,
Okay, Mr. Kopp, this is,
I know it's public.
all right, thank you.
I thought we've had a policy ever since I can remember of trying to stay as close to existing highway, rail right-of-way corridors as possible.
You do, and we are moving ahead consistent with those.
All right, that's
there
all.
are times that certain things are unavoidable, and that's one of those that we need to
All right, and let's see if we can get through the next 20 public comments. Next, I'd like to invite up Robert Hsu, following Mr. Hsu, Julia Berry. Roger Hsu, what did I call you?
That's okay, I'll go by either name.
Was any name correct? Did I?
Roger.
Okay, good. Got it.
I'm going to echo what the last gentleman just said. My name is Roger Hsu. I, too, am a landowner, farm owner in the same area as well. And I'm concerned with one of the proposed routes that cuts across that farmland at an angle. And not only does it take up the farmland, but you're cutting, not only is the farmland you're using, but you're breaking up infrastructure such as irrigation systems and other things like that. So it isn't just the cost of the land you're going to acquire, but there's also other problems. And it's those problems that concern me the most. And it isn't just the infrastructure, but you create dead parcels, such as corner blocks that will be worth only something to the landowner on the other side of the rail. So I have a big concern with that. And I just wanted to express my concern, and I would hope that, like he said, we might find a way to use existing right-of-ways and things that already exist so we don't have to do that again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Julia Berry, followed by Victor Kiernan. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Julia Berry. Thank you for the time. I represent the farmers of Madera County. It just so happens that the three of us are the first ones up today. I don't want to duplicate the comments that have been made today, but I do want to make myself available to your staff because there are a lot of ancillary benefits to farmland and a lot of things that could happen in the production of farmland, of having a train at 250 miles per hour going next to almond trees and those crops that require blooms to stay on the trees so that we can have almonds and so that we can have pollination. And so I don't want to bore you with the details today, but I'd like to make myself available to your staff. And I will say that the evaluation of the routes can't take in a lot of the sort of, I guess you can call them subjective benefits and public benefits of having farmland. And again, I'm not going to bore you with the details today, but I would like to make myself available in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Victor Kiernan, followed by Robert Poitras.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board and audience. To keep this within the 3 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Basically, I'm making you have in front of you a copy of an email that I sent to Quentin Kopp. I realize this is not a very formal presentation, but this is the best I could do in the time I had. In other words, it pretty well tells the story. My background is transit systems engineering, and I've worked for BART, Muni, the California Public Utility Commission, and other companies. I'm proposing that we look at the facts of the case are that the money that's going to be divvied up in the next 2 months is not going to get us very far. And I'm suggesting and throwing the idea out that we shorten the route up of the present route that you have given to the people of the Department of Transportation. So I'll read a little bit of this. I believe California must be realistic about what they could achieve with a relatively small amount of money. $9 billion is a relatively small amount of money. The government wants the maximum wallop for the ARR money to give, that they are going to give us, whatever it is. We don't know, of course. And I feel that the main thing is to get this first line running between the major cities as quickly as possible. Now, I've talked with Quentin Kopp before the meeting. He says this is all well and good, but your proposal is now in, and it's in Washington on the desk of the people back there, and there's not going to be any changes. But I thought I'd try to make a change anyway, or at least throw the idea out. I think some of the other proposals down here to make California the prime or lead project director of all 220-mile-per-hour train technology within the U.S. In other words, we don't reinvent the wheel in California, Texas, Florida, Washington. We build a standardized version that can be transferred from one region to another. So I think everything is in this one-pager, and I'll leave it there, and nice to be able to talk to you folks.
Thank you, sir. We have that here, so we will review it. Mr. Poitras?
Excellent job.
Close enough, and then Mr. Truax will follow you. Yes, sir.
Very good. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members, and staff. My name is Robert Poitras, and I'm a city council member for the city of Madera. As you may know, Madera County includes two cities, the city of Chowchilla and the city of Madera. We are very proud that Madera County elected officials, community leaders, and residents are speaking in one voice and support the high-speed rail heavy maintenance facility in Madera County. At this time, I would like to introduce other elected officials from the city of Chowchilla and the county of Madera that are here with me this morning sharing one voice. They are Max Rodriguez, chairman of the Madera County Board of Supervisors, and Jim CAHSRA, council member from the city of Chowchilla. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank all of you and your staff for the numerous meetings and workshops you have recently conducted in the Central Valley and more specifically Madera County. Since Madera County does not have a proposed rail station, we are very excited about the possibility and potential that we could be served by locating a heavy maintenance facility within our jurisdiction. Madera County is the only county serving both as a central link and intersection between the Los Angeles metropolitan area and the San Francisco-San Jose metropolitan area. The link between San Jose and the San Joaquin Valley will impact Madera County greatly and allows for several proposed heavy maintenance facility sites along the proposed alignments. We have proposed areas for the heavy maintenance facility along all possible routes to be best prepared for the outcome of the route selection process. We are a county that has been hit hard by the current economic crisis. We have some of the highest unemployment numbers in the country at 13.3% compared to the national average of 9.8%, and the state of California's average of 12%. However, Madera is also blessed with several sites that benefit from low land costs and the ability to easily assemble large tracts of land on each of the 8 alternatives coursing through our county. The county also has access to a large pool of skilled employees and numerous training facilities in the form of UC Merced, Fresno State University, and several junior colleges and vocational schools. Due to our central location, we are also easily accessible to Merced and Fresno County employees. The county has direct access to rail facilities along all routes, has uncongested access to local airports, and can provide infrastructure to all potential sites at comparatively low cost. Madera County has relatively close access to California ports such as Stockton, Sacramento, Oakland, and Alameda. In closing, I would like to thank all of you and your staffs for your continuing efforts towards bringing the state of California into the 21st century with a state-of-the-art high-speed rail facility that will serve this region for the foreseeable future. I would also like to invite any of you to visit us in Madera anytime, and again, thank you for your time and consideration of Madera County for a location of the heavy maintenance facility in the Central Valley. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Next, I will ask Mr. Mike Truax, followed by Mr. Anthony Davis.
Hi, my name is Lance Tomasu. I'm here with NUMI. We're here representing the New United Motor Manufacturing.
Huh?
Excuse me?
You threw me off with the name.
Oh, yes.
So it's not the name that's written on the card.
Right.
But you're still welcome.
Thank you. We're actually here to answer any questions that the board might have about the plant, any technical questions. There was a subsequent meeting where Chairman Kopp at the time had some questions about the plant, and so we're really here just to be a resource.
Very good. Thank you. We'll rely upon that.
All right.
All right. Mr. Davis, followed by Ms. McCarthy.
Good morning, Chairman and staff. I'm here on behalf of Kojima Development to tell the area out there we were talking about. I'm going to duplicate what a lot of people have said. Basically, what I would like to say, I think the major impact of this rail system going through farmland would be devastating, impacting the farmers there, of course, the irrigation situation. And I would propose to the staff that you would upgrade the existing easements they have on the outskirts where it's not in major prime land. And I would just see the impact of this thing going through prime farmland will devastate the farmers. And the farmers, that is traditional land. Like the former gentleman said, this is generations of land development out here and farmland. And for the last century or so, you can see that's the protective part of this part of the country and for the rest of the United States. So I would propose that we go to the outskirts and develop the existing easements instead of it impacting these farmers. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. McCarthy.
Hello. I'm also representing Kojima Development. And over the past couple months, I've been able to observe the process of evaluating the lines that are going through. I had a couple of questions, but I understand that Julia Berry brought up one of them. My first question was, as I spoke to some of the program managers and project managers on the project, was that I understand only 3% of the design criteria are actually evaluated to choose the lines and to determine which lines are going to be thrown out. And that seems like you're not actually evaluating all of the criteria. And, for example, I was going to use the cutting through the prime farmland is a very, very big issue, and that's not evaluated in the first pass to determine which lines are thrown out and which are going to stay. So that was a big concern of mine. The second one was when I spoke to the project managers, they indicated that they didn't have time to go back and evaluate anything more or any other criteria due to the fact that they wanted to make their schedule, which they did, and I understand that's extremely important to make your schedule. But they were told that they had to cut 60 days off of their project to make the deadline. 60 days, when I used my calculator, was 480 hours, which seemed like a lot of time to be cut when you're evaluating and making decisions on which lines to use. So those are the two things that I was concerned about, and I hope that you guys take those into consideration and maybe give the project managers more time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think board members, we all have been contacted, or various folks have been contacted about some of our staff work that's been going on in the northern part of the valley. And there are 5, 6, 7 different routes that were originally identified, and they're now engaged in the narrowing process of starting to limit study on various routes. So I think what we're hearing from is many folks within the community where some of the routes may be moving forward and others may not be, and people have different levels of concern that they're expressing, and I do appreciate that. I think our team is really focused on ensuring that we are properly prepared for the federal stimulus dollars as well, and part of the time challenge we face is we have to have all the environmental clearance completed by a time certain if we receive any funding. And for the Central Valley lines, those are really important lines. That's why the board submitted 2 sections in the Central Valley, not 1, but 2. And if they are not properly cleared through the environmental process in time to match that federal requirement, we don't have that option. So there are many steps along this process, and maybe we're at the first few steps of a long walk, but we will make sure we work it through, and I know our team is very sensitive about those things and hears all your point of view, as does the board today.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just want to comment on one statement that was made about the program manager stating that they didn't have enough time to analyze different options. I don't believe that any such statement was made. If it was erroneous. That our team has been instructed to work as diligently as they can to have sufficient analysis before any kind of recommendations or decisions are made. So we are not going to make a hasty decision or hasty analysis based on a deadline. We will make sure that at any step of the way, all the necessary work and all the necessary analysis to the extent that's necessary to reach a decision at a certain point are done. So the deadline, I use a deadline as a reason for not having that sufficient analysis is untrue. If somebody made that statement, it's an inaccurate statement, and we will continue to do all due diligent work that's necessary for that in each segment.
All right, very good. So I know there's others that wish to be heard on specific items, and I'll announce that at that time. If the board agrees, I'd like to jump to some of the action items first, as I want to make sure every member can participate on those items. So first off, on that objection, I'd like to go to item number 5, approval of our September 3rd, 23rd, and October 1st meeting minutes.
We only have one, and this is the draft, so if you have any comments.
All right, so based on the new policy, so I wish the board members would review that, and we'll put that, any modifications made, you can present them to staff, and then we'll have that back before us at our next meeting. Okay? We'll do it then. So item number 6, memorandum of understanding with the Gateway Cities Council of Governments. Mr. Morshed.
Mr. Chairman, yourself and Member Katz and I had the opportunity to meet with the representative of the cities, generally referred to as the Gateway Cities. Those are cities that are in southern Los Angeles County along I-5 corridor, and obviously they have very strong concerns about the impact of high-speed rail on their community. And they were seeking a method of participating with us in a cooperative way to work on the evaluation of various options. And we actually welcome that. We are very, very happy that they were interested and willing to participate in that. As a part of that meeting, we agreed that we will develop a memorandum of understanding between the authority and the Gateway Cities through the CAHSRA to put it in motion in a formal way of a process for collaboration and cooperation. We actually have worked quite diligently over the last 30 days to put that draft together, and it's been, a difficult work, but thanks to especially to Mr. Alex Clifford of LAMTA, who really took the leadership of getting all different entities and interests in there and trying to get their comments and accommodate those comments and put it in a final form. I did forward the final draft to you yesterday on an email, and I have copies of that available for you, and I would recommend that the authority approve and authorize me to enter into that MOU with the Gateway City COGS pursuant to the draft that you have in front of you.
Very good. Any comments on this? Mr. Katz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add to what Mr. Morshed added. Appreciated a lot Mehdi and Kurt and both Art Leahy and Will Kempton, MTA and OCTA, coming to this meeting that Congresswoman Napolitano helped organize. We had some 35 elected representatives, cities and council members and mayors and staff from the Gateway Cities COG. And, the comment was similar to we've heard in other areas. They just hadn't felt included in the process. And I think the MOU represents a really good process for moving forward. It doesn't solve the issues, but it sets up a process. And when the chair and I were back in D.C., we had a similar conversation with Congresswoman Roybal Allard, who's interested in doing something similar in her area. So from a standpoint of vesting people in the process, it's a huge step, and I also appreciate Alex's work in shepherding this, and the Gateway Cities COG and the mayors and the council members. So I think we have a good model here. Would urge an aye vote on it. Thank you,
Very
Mr.
good.
Chairman.
Mr. Kopp?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to take a look at a couple of these provisions, having just gotten this too late to bring these to the attention of the director or Commissioner Katz or the chairman, whoever else was involved. The first one relates to the two committees that are set up in paragraphs 2 and 3.
On which page are you referencing, Mr. Kopp?
2.
On page 2?
Yeah. Are those subject, or are they contemplated they'd be subject to the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act?
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is, based on conversation with our council, was that they were not. There was some question on our council's part about the high-speed rail being part of that organization, but other than that, no, these are technical groups that will be meeting outside of that.
All right. And no, Mr. Spanish, no disagreement.
Well, okay.
Well, we do have a concern about number 2, the administrative committee, and I think that's number 3. If the committee, the administrative committee, is formed by the COG, then we don't have a problem with it at all. There is a concern, though, that if the authority pursuant to this agreement is involved in the establishment of committees, that it might implicate the Bagley-Keene Act. I don't think there's would be any problem in saying that these two committees, the technical working group and the administrative committee, would be formed by the COG. I think that would be a cleaner and much more desirable way to go.
Well, I'd propose adding that sentence as an amendment to the agreement. And then
Adding that sentence in both paragraph, or in paragraph 3, is that what you're stating?
I think either one.
Either one? Well, one is an engineering technical working group for the project technical working group, and the other is an administrative committee. So I just heard from our counsel that the only place he expressed some minor degree of concern was in the administrative committee. So is that what you're suggesting, Mr. Powell?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So that committee formed by the Gateway Cities COG.
Okay. On paragraph 3, Mr. Chairman and members, in relation to paragraph 2, paragraph 3 says the city managers comprise the administrative committee to provide policy direction and oversight of the technical working group. Under paragraph 2, this authority is a member of that technical working. I'm concerned about the implication that we're going to receive policy direction and oversight because of that. Is that what's contemplated?
No, Mr. Chairman. It is the intent of that paragraph is for the entities there to provide oversight to their own city managers, etc. If that's one of your concerns, one of the possibilities would be to, instead of the working group not having the high-speed CHSRA being part of that working group, but as formally written in this, so you could avoid that potential problem. That's your concern.
I would suggest an amendment to clarify that.
Well, I don't understand where there's a problem, Mr. Cobb. Paragraph 3 says the parties agree to form an administrative committee composed of city managers, including staff members from LA, MTA, OCTA, and the Gateway Cities COG for the purpose of assisting the authority with regard to policy. So if their purpose is to assist the authority as regard to policy, and it's articulated that that is their purpose, along with to provide policy direction and oversight of the technical working group, even though the high-speed rail may be a part of the technical working group, it articulates under the administrative committee's responsibility of assisting the authority with regard to the policy. So it's not, it expressly says it's not directing the authority. It's not shaping or forcing the authority to take policy. It's assisting, offering advice. So
put a period after the word policy, because it then goes on to say that it's going to provide us policy direction.
Well, I don't read that. I guess I'm just a tad sensitive because I know over the last 30 days, staff from all entities, including ours, our legal counsel, as well as staff of the gateway cities, including many of the cities, along with LAMTA and OCTA, have been trying to craft the words, and I just don't want to, if there's a problem, we should address it. I just don't know if there's any problem there. But, Mr. Katz.
I appreciate what the direction the judge is taking, but I don't see it the same way in terms of there being a policy problem. I don't think, it's a technical advisory committee. They're given ideas, but it's not going to dictate to us what policy is, certainly. And I think that everyone's clear on that. And I think Kurt's comment about the work that was done by a lot of people to craft this thing is important, because that's part of, again, it's part of that buy-in we're trying to get from locals and our legal counsel and staff, as well as MTA and Orange. We're involved in doing that. So we're all very conscious of that. I think it's a good reminder, obviously, for the committee, but I don't think it's a problem how it's drafted.
All right, I'm satisfied so long as your statement is a part of the record.
And I will make a point, we'll make a point also of reminding, when they get together, and Alex is here who's been doing that work, so we will reinforce that message again.
Paragraph, I'm sorry.
So this one says,
on paragraph 5C, Mr. Chairman, there.
Yes, sir.
Starts up by saying the authority will reimburse the GCCOG for project-related tasks. I would think that's intended to mean memorandum of understanding-related tasks.
Mr. Morshed, would you explain precisely what that might mean?
I don't know that it really makes much of a difference, because the intent is for us to provide them with the necessary resources for them to evaluate our work. So whether we say project-related or the MOU related, MOU relates to the project. So either way, I believe it will work, and I can check with the council, and if it doesn't make any difference, just change it to MOU related.
Well, Mr. Morshed, if in fact you say project-related tasks consistent with the MOU or something like that.
Project consistent with the MOU, that's fine, because I think obviously the intent is not for them to be reviewing the work of the project in Chowchilla, which technically one could say that, but that's so by just saying project-related tasks, or whether the MOU-related task is still intended to be in that particular area. So however you word it, I don't think it's going to make a difference.
Well, I'd just suggest, or I'd request an amendment that will authorize the director to make any such advised change.
As identified in this MOU, some project-related tasks as identified in this MOU. Okay.
Then there's two more points here. One in the next paragraph, or paragraph 7, uses the word all as in all parties. There's only two parties to this agreement. And after that, it says each party except in various paragraphs I won't go into, but I've marked up. It talks about each other party, and that ought to be consistent. for the fact that there are only two parties, and it should say each party or something that will be consistent with there being two parties.
No problem.
All right, so that we can change the word all to each.
And there are other places here that I marked up. I can give you, Mr. Spanos can take them and go over.
No, I want to vote on this with the amendments clearly identified.
All
So
right,
if you
so
wish
let
to
me-
make additional changes to
All right,
words,
let me
let's hear
go
them.
through it then. Paragraph 11, the second sentence. It's not intended by this MOU that either party. 2 lines down, change the word any, as in any other party, to the word the other party. Same thing in paragraph 13. Says other parties, change the word other to the, and where it says at the end of the second sentence, any party, change it to either. Paragraph 15, change the word each to the other party, the indemnification clause.
Where you, I am, so at the beginning it says each party agrees to indemnify
and save harmless
each other party.
the other party. The. And then on paragraph 20, the representatives of each party. That's the notice section, and this has notice to MTA and to OCTA, which neither of which is a party and which should be deleted.
They're a party. Aren't they a part of the MOU?
The only two parties, California High-Speed Rail Authority and Gateway City.
Because you're notifying the transportation agencies about actions within this MOU, I think that's why they're listed. It's not stating that they are a party, but it says, in fact, that they'll be provided information.
You can provide information to everybody, but notice is in terms of somebody, for example, notifying the other party or violating the agreement.
I understand, but also it notifying the transportation agencies within the jurisdiction of the gateway cities is why it was important to have that listed.
Prudent.
Then on the last ones, in paragraph 22, the execution of this MOU should delete the word all. Then the word all in the following sentence should be deleted, and the word any should be deleted, and the word either substituted. And on the last page, 30 days written notice to the other party.
All right?
The last question I have, there's a word that's used in one of these paragraphs, the word community. And I'm not clear as to what that means. In paragraph 8, is that different from city?
No.
Why are we just saying within that city?
Okay.
Is there, well,
I don't know.
I don't necessarily know why we would need to change that. A community may not necessarily be the entire city. A community could be a subset of a city or include more than one city. But the cities are the party through the COG. But see, there are a lot of cities that work together, and if a community, though, may straddle city boundaries, it may not be a citywide effort. It may be within that community, and that could be made up of people who do live, in fact, in two different cities. I don't know why I would challenge that word. It doesn't have a material effect on what is being stated. All right, so thank you. All the various amendments that have been heard and agreed to, Mr. Katz makes a motion adopting this MOU with those amendments. Mr. Deardon seconds. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I think I jumped in ahead of...
Go ahead, Mr. Deardon.
I think this is a very strong statement of cooperation and compliments to you and the folks in the area down there. Is it comparable, maybe in your opinion, to the MOU that we have relating to the Caltrain corridor?
It is, the intent is comparable, but the content are different because the...
Very different government structure.
Because the other one, they're owner-operated of train facilities, so we are much more specific items in the other MOU than we have here. But it's consistent with the way we should be operating in each community, and from my point of view, it's good. It's a welcome event that the communities are agreeing to sit down and actually work with us rather than just us trying to find out who do we talk to. So it's a major benefit to our ability to move forward with the project. And we certainly would encourage other entities in other areas to do the same thing. We'd be happy to do that with the cities within the Caltrain corridor individual. So that's the approach that the authority would like to have, and we would encourage everywhere to do the same thing.
But maybe that MTC or another umbrella organization in the region would want to try to bring the regions, the cities and counties in on the West Bay to create the same kind of cooperation and communication, because we are having some difficulty in communicating with some of the cities there, as you all know. So maybe this model might be extrapolated into that area.
That would be a very, very good model to follow.
Could we ask you to check with Steve Heminger to see if they might be willing to take the lead on that?
I certainly will.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Schenk.
I have three very quick comments. First, again, this is a kudos. A lot of work goes into this. So thank you for doing that. Two, it's really along the lines of what Rod is talking about. We have MOUs, and we've got a few of them out there, and sort of this develops. We ought to be thinking about a model for other areas using this. Obviously, some of the substance will be different, but we ought to be having sort of a standard form. And third, just for the record, this authority has in the past tried to reach out to these communities, to these elected officials. Timing is everything, and before we had $10 billion and a possibility of more, many of these people who are now pushing for this were not interested in meeting with us and didn't even have their staff meet with us. So I'm really glad that now the timing is such that they wanted to and that we've come to this point. So thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second before us. Any further discussion? Mr. Morshed, if I may impose upon you to do a roll call vote.
Oh, okay. Chairman Pringle.
Aye.
Mr. Umberg.
Aye.
Mr. Crane.
Aye.
Mr. Deardon.
Aye.
Ms. Flores.
Yes.
Mr. Katz.
Aye.
Mr. Kopp.
Aye.
Ms. Schenk.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much. Passed by unanimous vote. Next item before us is item number 7, a request for expression of interest for maintenance facilities.
Mr. Chairman,
Morshed.
This item is, you aptly earlier asked us to try to come up with a formal process where we would receive expression of interest from communities and interest groups and developers who might be interested in participating in building of a maintenance facility. And following that direction, we have prepared a request for expression of interest for those maintenance facility, laying out what the conditions and requirements of each maintenance facility are. And what we would like to do is ask you to authorize us to issue that RFEI and proceed with it.
Very good.
So, second.
Well, first off, since you guys are so quick, there are a couple folks who wish to be heard on this item, so I'd like to first ask Supervisor Perea. That's a step forward. There are 2 separate cards from you, so you're still only going to get 3 minutes.
Okay.
Regardless of how many you turn in.
Understood. A staff submitted one too in the event
Thank you,
that
sir.
I fail to. Chairman Pringle, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak before you and members of the commission. Appreciate your time. First, I'd like to thank your staff. Carrie Bowen was in Fresno at our last board meeting, gave a presentation on high-speed rail, gave an update and did an excellent presentation, and Fresno County is very excited about this obviously coming to our state and for hopefully the high-speed rail facility to come into our county also. But having said that, what I'd like to say is we're here to support obviously the item that you have before you today. We're very excited about it. And to let you know that Fresno County has been working diligently on preparing for this item, and we're prepared to meet whatever deadline you put before us to submit it to you. I understand that there are maybe some of our sister or brother counties that may not be ready to go, and of course we could always use a little more time too. So if there's a December 15th deadline, I believe, for submission of this, if that's the deal, then we'll be ready to go. If there's an extension that's being requested, then we're ready to support that. But we'd like to do it and submit it to you as soon as possible, because this is obviously very important to all of us. And finally, just like to say, we have had some minor dialogue with the Urban Land Institute. We understand that they are working to put together conferences in this state on the issue of high-speed rail, and we certainly would welcome them to Fresno County to have one of those statewide conferences. We're in Central Valley, a lot of things happening there, and we'd be happy to host that in our county if you so desire. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Also, I'd like to hear from Chris Chevring. I hope I did okay on your name. You do print well, but some of these letters, I don't know what they are.
It's actually Chris Shearing, Mr. Chair, and thank you. Okay. Good morning to the members of the authority and Mr. Chair. I probably actually shouldn't have checked number 7 as the agenda item I wanted to speak to. I'm an environmental attorney on the staff of the California Farm Bureau, and one of the things I do is try to protect agricultural resources, prime farmland. And rather than beating a dead horse, I'll just step down with just a brief comment that I would echo all the things you heard in the earlier public comment about conversion of prime agricultural land, both with respect to the line as well as maintenance facilities. And just remind you that once you pave over prime soil, you just can't get it back. So that's really all I had to say, and I'm sorry it was out of place.
Oh, no, we get it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morshed, I do have a few questions that I'd like to quickly discuss on this. First off, it was mentioned that there's a deadline on this to get back by December 15th. Is there a timing decision, issues that need to be resolved soon thereafter, or I'm kind of respectful of people's calendars as we're asking new ideas to be brought to us, and I just don't want to be too limiting in the time to have people possibly talk to landowners and local governments and plans submitted. If there's a real requirement that we have to have it done by December 15th, then we'll do it, but I would almost rather give another month if we get better proposals.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a very welcome comment, and I would work with the staff, given that we are already overworked. Even if we live by the deadline, we're going to have a hard time dealing with it, with the answers. So I will check with the program management team, and unless there's some real compelling reason that this is this is a deadline we must meet, we will try to extend that to well into January.
Well, I'd like to have that established here. Is there any problem with making this January 15th?
No. Okay, January. How about January 30th?
No. Well, okay, I don't know. So January 15th, but is January...
Right, this
Yeah.
is just our...
I understand, but if you do look at the list of 7 questions we ask, we really are asking folks to identify property, and for the large maintenance facility, that could be multiple property owners. And I just want to make sure we have enough time to get everything we're asking for.
If there's no urgency for it, there's no reason to push people, and the more time we have, the more opportunity we have to get results. So that's why I don't even mind going, making it end of January. But
Mr. Chairman, may I ask another question, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
The only concern, I support making sure we get it done right.
Right.
We will, though, have to do an environmental evaluation of the site selected, or maybe even as part of the selection process, several sites.
Right.
Is that going to take a long enough period of time, Tony, to
I
prejudice our ability to get these stimulus funds?
The real question is that we don't want to leave it too long. Whether it's December the 15th or January the 15th, it's not going to make a lot of difference because you've got Christmas and the New Year, and it's almost a dead period, but it gives a little bit more time for people. But we don't want to push it much further on from that because we do have deadlines to meet as far as the alternative analysis is concerned and what we need to do for the environmental process. So I wouldn't push it any further than the middle or end of January.
Very good. So I would like to propose January 15th. A couple other questions I have is that a lot of discussion has been made today about some of the route issues in the northern part of the Central Valley being discussed. Will there be a definitive route selected? Some folks expressed to me that there may be some even a further narrowing of evaluation over the next month, or what is being evaluated now, will those continue to be evaluated, or are we open to hear people providing heavy maintenance facility ideas based on all of the routes?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Morshid, yes.
The route evaluations are in various parts of the state are in different stages.
Yes.
And in some areas, particularly like the Central Valley, Fresno to Bakersfield and Fresno to Merced, the staff and the FRA have gone through a process of alternative analysis, and they're recommending at least 2 of the routes between Merced and Fresno to be eliminated, and then 1 of the routes down south. So, and that information will be available to all the parties who want to provide the, information for maintenance facility, and so that and in the other parts of the state, again, depending on where we are in the route selection, they will be, it will be well known that what is being considered and what has been eliminated.
But the question is, there will be no further statements made by the authority narrowing alternatives in the northern part of the valley between now and, let's say, January 15th?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
That's already been
So what is being discussed right now, people will know, and but that brings me to another point, specifically on the heavy maintenance facility. It does talk about preferencing within a half a mile from, I want to make sure I understand what is being said by that. That's not necessarily suggesting that the location needs to be within a half a mile, is it?
It would be better if it would be. The nearer you can get the maintenance facilities to the track you're taking the trains from, the better it is. So ideally, we'd want to be with that kind of distance. It doesn't mean to say it can't be further than that.
So, I guess it says preferably within a half a mile from and suitable for being connected directly to the main line trunk of the high-speed rail.
Right.
I guess I don't want to somewhat exclude someone or suggest that if there's a great location that is 0.6 miles from the high-speed rail, that somehow someone who's 0.5 miles from the high-speed rail line is in a superior spot or it's a superior concept. I just want to make sure people hear that this is somewhat of a recommendation, a guidepost, as opposed to restricting applicants. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And you feel comfortable with that?
Mr. Chairman, yes, that's exactly what it is, because it could be that you have a proposal, somebody is 5 or 10 miles away from the track. But then, if they give you enough incentive, that's going to make it worthwhile to go that extra miles, and then you will go. So it just depends on what is in the ultimate deal.
Right.
That's going to decide
and I guess
the cost benefit.
Want all those folks who have specifically asked that question of me to hear what Mr. Morshed just said, that there is a very open evaluation process that will take place, and the distance is important, but it could be balanced off with the value proposition being offered. Let me see. Now, the other thing is we reference a size, approximately 154 acres for the heavy equipment facility. That sounds really, really precise. Is there a contemplation that there's greater value if it was larger?
No, I don't think so. That's about the size, the order of magnitude on the layouts that we placed down. And
So
there's some variation either side of that.
Okay. So, 154 is really what you're looking at, but probably in a value proposition, someone could suggest there's greater land opportunities adjacent to that may even enhance a proposal. Is that right?
It's possible, yeah.
There's a set of 7 questions being asked here. I really want to make sure we are really clear to say that if there is one applicant or a community or city or a group of communities, cities, counties, or whatever that join with some private parties to submit applications, that we don't necessarily want to have that restricted to one concept. If there is a community that has multiple sites that they wish to present or multiple concepts, that we'd be welcoming to that.
Yes.
That in no way should, if there is one group, a collection of local governments, for example, or economic development entities for a county, if they submit 4 different ideas, they just have to submit them separately, answering these 7 questions, right?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Any other, Mr. Crane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you essentially made my point. I just want to make sure that it's made clearly. I worried as I read this that it was excessively prescriptive and could limit the potential for, out of bounds or out of box type thinking in responding to this. So I want to support what the chairman just said, that what we want to convey to people is, here's what we want. Now you come back and tell us what you want to propose to get us there. And something could be further away, for example, and half the cost, or higher quality or whatever. But I just want to be careful not to be excessively prescriptive. We want, as that great capitalist Mao Zedong said, 1,000 flowers to bloom.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman,
Are you done, Mr. Crane, or you have any other?
I have a little red book here. Hold on.
There's so much to say, Mr. Morshed.
In response to both of your comments is that I fully agree with that, and I think we want to make sure that actually at the RFEI that we send out, that we are very clear that these questions and those things are the things that we can think of and we're asking, but please don't be constrained by them.
Okay.
That people should be free to offer other options if they feel like it's meritorious, and we don't want to use the questions and restriction. Now, if somebody comes in and say we only have 50 acres and we need 150, that's one thing.
Right.
But if somebody comes in and I have a different location, different approach, the authority wants to be open-ended in terms of for as Mr. Crane pointed out, for the creative ideas to come forward and see what they are going to propose.
Very good. Yes, Mr. Crane.
Just one last thing, which is along that line. It's a question. Are we putting this out on the Internet? How are we putting out this request for expressions of interest?
We're going to give it to everybody that is in sight, whether it's on the Internet, whether it's in the local papers, all the stakeholders along the whole route. We're working with Jeff Barker, wherever he is, to come up with...
Barker knows the Internet. All right. I mean, you'd want to post this on your website. And again, while we're all saying the right things here, make sure that it's not the most lengthy document in the world, so that people can look at it and say, these guys are interested in something. We might be able to supply them what they want. I always worry about people thinking it's too complicated or somebody else has got an inside shot. So get it out there, Barker.
All right. Mr. Umberg asked me to just ask, in terms of this heavy equipment, heavy maintenance facility, and even some of the terminal maintenance discussions, what is the process by which a selection will take place? This is the beginning with the RFEI, and then there may be a narrowing with an RFQ or a direct RFP being issued, or what? And what are some of those steps, and what are some of those general timeline for this process?
Well, I think we're looking to get as many sites that are available in the Central Valley and the whole of the Central Valley. And whatever we get in, we will analyze and put into the alternative analysis process if it fits. And it'll go through the rigid sequence of the alternative analysis under the CEQA NEPA rules and regulations and all the meetings that are associated with it. And there'll be no decisions made relative to any one particular site until it's gone through that process with all the local stakeholders and the people at large that are involved with the full alternative analysis process, and no decision will be made until that goes through.
All right.
On any of the sites.
Mr. Umberg.
What's your target for making a decision on each of the facilities? Target date?
No, the target would be, Mr. Umberg, through the alternative analysis process. I don't have the dates by which we are going through each of the stages at the front of my head, but there will be no decision made. I mean, ultimately, it will come down to the final run. The decision as to exactly what we do and the preferred alignment will be down the road as we finish the draft environmental document. And you will be in the process of making that decision.
So in this regard, are you suggesting that there will be, after RFEIs are submitted, you'll look at those, see which sound practical, and you include those in the alternative analysis that is taking place right now for the environmental processes in all of those areas. And when that final environmental process is completed, brought before us, that's when that final decision will be made. There will be a recommendation made at the completion of that environmental process, but in fact, the decision will be made by the board when we vote on the final environmental product that is submitted. Is that right?
Yes.
And in each of these cases, that will be sometime mid to late 2011?
No, before that.
All right.
Yeah, before that.
Mid to late 2010?
Late 10, early 11.
All right. That's a better target for you, Mr. Umberg.
Right. That was my question. Thank you.
Mr. Umberg, do you plan on voting in person on that item in late 2010?
God help us all if I'm not. So.
All right. We'll take that as yes. All right. With the modification of the response date, Mr. Dearden, make the motion, and second by Ms. Flores. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, may I ask Mr. Morshed you to call the roll?
Chairman Pringle?
Aye.
Mr. Umberg?
Aye.
Mr. Crane? Aye. Mr. Dearden? Aye. Ms. Flores?
Yes.
Mr. Katz?
Aye.
Mr. Kopp? Aye. Ms. Schenk? All right.
Very good. Thank you. That item passes unanimously. Item 8, Mr. Morshed.
Mr. Chairman, this item 8, we had this in terms of trying to develop a process for eventually getting to the RFQ for the procurement. But since then, as subsequent to conversation with you and Mr. Crane, and I think Mr. Katz was involved in it, and taking your comments into consideration, I think it would be better for us to simply move forward without going through this elaborate process and start moving toward the preparing an RFQ based on the advice and information that was going to be provided to us from our financial consultants and other people that do. So at this time, I would just request that the item be taken off.
Very good. Mr. Crane, did you have something you'd like to say on this? No, that's not good. Okay. Very good. So there's Mr. Morshed recommends withdrawing this item at this time. Mr. Kopp.
Are these times apt to be your guiding set of time principles?
We will still try to go for the RFQs on those time periods, yes, because it is, we want to end up, the procurement process needs to stay on schedule, and this is, in a way, would expedite that, make it easier for us to meet those deadlines.
Very good. Next is item number 9. Mr. Morshed, would you introduce this item? And I'm going to step away for just a minute and ask Mr. Katz to preside for just 2 minutes, but please proceed.
Just 2 minutes? Mr. Chairman, as you know, we brought this issue before you the last time. There were some questions about the process and the selection, and the board members felt that the process was not quite satisfactory for them, so we re-advertised this item, and we received the proposals and evaluated, and I'm going to have Mr. Barker to give you the full detail of everything that went on.
I appreciate it. Well, Mr. Barker's come up also. I've been critical in the past of the staff preparation in terms of the books and what we have for this meeting, and I do need to tell you guys, this is a much better job. I appreciate, the information, not just on this item, but on all the items, and this is a much fuller explanation of background material, and greatly appreciate all that information. It makes for more reading, but gives me a much better idea what's going on. So,
and
with
just
that,
take that comment to heart, because that's probably the last time you're going to hear anything complimentary from Richard.
no, if he does something good in the next 2 years, I'll tell him.
I think that Chanel's working on getting the PowerPoint up on your screens. I don't know if you can see it in front of you on the computers or not.
Not yet.
It's one of the things that will be improved with the new outreach and communications team.
That's good.
I'll keep this, sort of brief with the briefing you have in your packet in a little more detail. I want to start off by saying that oftentimes, in headlines and people talk, outreach and communications get shortened to the term PR. So I want to start off by saying what do we actually mean when we're talking about communications? It's much broader than PR, picking up the phone when a newspaper reporter calls, that kind of thing. The way I view communications and outreach, a couple of bullet points here. Outreach to communities and advocacy groups all the way across our line, hundreds of cities, dozens of counties, all kinds of interest groups who want information about the project, making sure that we're keeping in touch with them, as well as all of our partners throughout all the levels of government that we need to maintain relationships with and information flow with in order to get this thing completed. Transparency and accountability, that's part of communications. That's part of making sure that we're communicating what the board's doing, where the project is at every level. Accurate information, whether that's the media, whether that's in meetings like this one, and making sure that's available and uniform throughout the state. And effectively flowing information through an organization which, while we have a very small state staff, is actually several hundred people in the organization throughout the state with contractors and subcontractors, and just establishing communication within that organization is a challenge in itself. So we talk about the need for communications. In this project, there's a lot of reasons that really make it important that this is an element we focus on. In a lot of respects, this is going to be the largest public transportation, public works project in U.S. history. When you talk about the dollar amount, the size and scope of what we're doing, it's something that will literally change the face of our state, statewide, and at the very, very local level in each community. We have $9 billion in bond funds that the people have entrusted us with, and billions more in federal funds. I think all of these reasons make it incumbent upon us to focus on information and outreach and making sure that everybody's informed about what we're doing.
There's a couple examples from recent history of what is going on with communications with the project. These are just a handful of some headlines from some newspapers where I feel kind of a void of information and less outreach than is necessary has produced some misunderstandings and that affects our project. The broader reasons. We have the Prop 1A bonds. That has dramatically changed our project over the past year with a lot more interest, a lot more demand for information, a lot more community groups being interested. The Recovery Act funding is another one. It's really woken up a number of groups and a wide number of people to the project and wanting information. And also where we are right now in the process with trying to meet our deadlines to complete the environmental review. That's an area where we are obligated to reach out, to connect with people, to gather information, to pass information to them. It's not optional. It's something we are required to do within that process. Okay, you're not supposed to be able to read this. It is meant to just impress. This was an attempt to describe the communication structure with the authority about a year ago. All of these boxes, there's duplicate people. The lines are trying to describe not only contractual relationships, but supervisory and direct report relationships. And if my name was on there, I wouldn't know what to do or who to talk to. Not a clue. That is not a model for effective communications. What we're proposing to do, we'll streamline this, and maybe this is an oversimplification, but this is another way to draw it with what we're proposing to do. What we'll have is we'll have the statewide communications and outreach contractors reporting directly to the authority, whereas they were previously or currently reporting to our program contractor. You also have the regional management teams that also contract directly with the authority, and under them, regional outreach teams. So what you have is you have both the regional outreach teams and the statewide team both reporting up to the authority. To me, in the position that was created about 3 months ago, and that's what's going to lead to a clear flow of communication, not only internally through our organization, but throughout the state to all the groups that we need to be keeping in contact with. This is a really, really rough way to look at it. One of the questions people ask is this a lot of money for communications and outreach? This is kind of a very rough look at the per person cost for a communications staffer. Our current system and what we're paying our current contractors. I have a comparison in the middle, and there's a much more discussion in your packet about this, about state staff and how much it would cost to bring on a state staff adequate for our size board and project. And then the contract we proposed, the dollar figure we have and the number of resources we're going to get there per person. Again, this is pretty rough and takes more explanation, but it's a way to look at getting our bang for our buck by bringing on a contractor and the wealth of resources that they bring. At this point, I'll get to the RFP process that a lot of people have been engaged in. We assembled this go-round a panel of 5 people assembled by the executive director. We went to our partner agencies, Orange County Transportation Authority, LA Metro, and Samtrans in the Bay Area, and asked for them to each provide a person and 2 authority members, and we had a 5-member panel, 4 members of which have expertise in communications and or outreach. And so we accepted written proposals. This time around we got 8 proposals, really only 7 of which were responsive to our request. And according to the RFP that we wrote and advertised, only those written proposals that received 85% score or more would be invited back for in-person interviews. So through that process, we invited back 2 firms for in-person interviews. It was the team we're recommending here that was assembled by Ogilvy Public Relations and a team assembled by Porter Novelli. And after that process, the 5-member panel, we had a pretty clear decision. We unanimously decided to recommend the Ogilvy firm, and there was a pretty wide point spread where there was really no question there. So I'll give you a couple of points of what we discussed as a panel and why we chose Ogilvy. We like the fact that they were able to expand and contract. It's a firm that has a statewide presence here in California, also offices in D.C. and New York and around the world. They have the ability to grow when our project demands that our team grow, but also contract during slower periods, as we know that our project will change over the course of years. This is a firm that has a number of other contractors, contracts with state government entities, and so they have a lot of experience using public dollars and showing accountability with those dollars. I called a few of those offices, and I'll note in particular the Treasurer's Office. Ogilvy has assisted them in selling their bonds and getting more individuals to purchase bonds, and they had extremely good words to say about working with them and the results of that contract actually bearing what they had hoped for. The other thing I'll mention about this team is that they did augment their team with a couple of members of our current communications and outreach team, which I think is a smart move that allows us to have continuity, so we're not starting from scratch with the new team, and carry over some of that institutional knowledge of those who've been working with the project for a number of years. And with that, what I'd like to do, I guess I should explain the next slide. I want to see what I expect. I think what the authority expects of its new contractor. Some of the things I've already been talking about. Ensuring coordinated communication internally in our organization, reaching out to a lot of the advocacy groups and stakeholder groups and formalizing those relationships so that there's an established flow of communication and dialogue there. Just purely increasing the amount of outreach we're doing, for everything you traditionally think of it as some communications PR, which the website, brochures, that kind of thing, and improving our materials, updating those, assisting in research and monitoring what's going on in other states and around the world in the financial markets and whatnot when it comes to this project, and of course also requiring them to demonstrate progress and to measure their progress and show to us very clearly that they're producing what they said they would at the start of the day. So unless you have any questions of me, what I'd like to do is bring up a couple members of the Ogilvy team who have a presentation of their own, just a real quick presentation to tell you who they are and what they hope to do.
Very good. Let's see if there are any questions. Did you have a question at this time, Ms. Shank, or later? I do have a specific question because it is interesting that just like every contract we let for our various consultants from engineering, design, financial advisors, and so forth, what we do is we address a multi-year contract with a total capped amount of expenditure over that annually and within those multiple years. So this contract may be portrayed as a $9 million contract, but in fact, according to the RFP itself, it states it is a annual contract with annual amounts at $1.5 million based upon billings and directed work requirement.
That's right.
And it's over a 5-year period. And in fact, the total value of that over the 5-year period cannot exceed $9 million. Is that what that is?
That is a ceiling, yes.
So in fact, it is more of an annual contract over a multiple number of years.
Correct. It is renegotiated annually, so we could treat it as an annual contract. Additionally, invoices and expenditures are okayed monthly.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Katz.
On that point, I think, Jeff, one thing that I think would make sense, since we control the budget annually, before we do the budget for the next year, we should get I know there will be interim reports, but we should get a comprehensive report of the last year's activities to coincide with our budget process, so however that works out timing-wise. Because I think that's one of the things we ought to be reviewing before we go ahead. We have a 30-day out on this. We can cancel this any time we want by getting out in 30 days. But more importantly, I think before we approve the next year's budget, let's take a look at the last year, evaluate the work, the amount of, all the stuff that where all the I's dotted, T's crossed, did we accomplish our goals for the year? Use that report then as the basis for the next year budget allocation.
Yeah, makes sense. Yep.
And along that line, and I'll get to it in a little bit later, but I'm going to ask that if the board approves this today, that the firm and a couple of the subs come to the next operations committee meeting, and we can go through this in more detail also. That's if it gets approved today. So.
Very good. Yes, Ms. Schenk.
Yeah, just as you all know, I was very critical of the last process. This is a much more transparent process, one that I'm much more comfortable with, and that I applaud that we went back and did this way, and that it should be the model for the way we do the future procurement. So thanks.
Great.
Very good. Mr. Dearden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff, could you go back to the last screen? one back. In the discussion of the objectives, there was one that isn't clear there that in my way of thinking was the most serious impediment in the way we were running, and that is that the central statewide organization would be controlled from the top down. Now, normally in these kinds of things we like bottoms-up leadership and so on, but this is one where we need to have top-down control in terms of consistency of message, which was a real problem in the past. And I don't see that here as a device yet.
That was a couple of slides previous with the organizational chart. That was my attempt to show that, that with the creation of my position as Deputy Director over Communications and Outreach, with the statewide firm reporting up through me, as well as the regional teams reporting up to the authority and through me, that I'd be the top of that that top-down pyramid to ensure not only that there is that clear working relationship, but that all of our regional outreach personnel are working closely with our statewide team. So I would be guaranteeing that.
Jeff, now, as an element of that, I'm going to say something that might sound pejorative to our engineers, and I don't mean it to be. But there's a tendency for the media to misquote us, given the least opportunity. And that happens probably a little more readily when we have technical people communicating in a political context. And it has indeed happened in a couple of the cases that if continued, might even prejudice the viability of our environmental review, in that the media inadvertently or that the individual inadvertently might communicate something that would suggest a direction that had not yet been taken by the organization, by the overall organization, or might not be recommended even by the data, but it would be rather an opinion of the individual. But that opinion then is turned over by the media as policy of the High-Speed Rail Authority Board. Somewhere in this process, your communications people need to be working with our engineers in a manner that would help them not to make those kinds of mistakes or even allow their comments to be interpreted in a mistaken way by the media. And that's a very delicate process. And again, I don't mean to be pejorative to our engineers. I think you've all been misquoted, and we just have to figure out a way to say things that can't be misquoted. But that's probably a responsibility in terms of guidance and education from the communications people to the engineers. How do you do that?
Well, I completely agree with you, and I would mention it's not just a danger of someone in the news media misquoting or mishearing something. It's also our partners.
Don't mention board members.
It's also our partners at regional transportation agencies and local government who could hear something the wrong way as well. And that is part of what we'll do with the new contractor. We've already begun to discuss with them is a statewide assessment of what we currently have, and if we need to conduct some training with some of our engineers, some of the folks who are doing presentations, we'll do that. If we need to ensure that we have certain outreach people in certain regions always in those meetings, we can do that as well.
Very good. Mr. Dearborn?
No, thank you. And by the way, in regard to board members, if a board member says something that you think might be prejudicial, you need to communicate with us.
And please talk to Mr. Dearborn in private. All right, Mr. Kopp, yes, sir.
On page 2, you use the and you just use it again, regional team. Referring to the section.
Q, your mic's not on.
Project manager.
David, do your job.
Did you hear me? All right.
I did. You were asking about the regional management teams, and yes, when I say regional management teams, I am talking about the section project managers.
All right. Thank you.
Very good. Please proceed with your presentation.
Great. Well, I believe we have here a couple members of the Ogilvy team. I'll let them introduce themselves. But Christy Black and Paul Hicks are here, and they have probably a nicer looking PowerPoint presentation than I have.
While that's queuing up, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Christy Black, Managing Director with Ogilvy Public Relations, and I want to introduce you to the colleagues of mine and our team that are here today. Paul Hicks, President of the Americas for Ogilvy Public Relations. Also with us, Jamie Moeller, our Global Public Affairs Director. Jamie's based in the Washington, D.C. office, and the connection between the California and Washington, D.C. operation will be really important, and we'll start right away. Michael Law, Managing Director for our West Coast operations. Michael had a role in writing the proposal. Also with us, Mindy Fletcher, one of our Senior Vice Presidents. She, along with Maggie Linden, another Senior Vice President, will have a strong role in overseeing the public affairs operation. Also, Steve Smith, who is one of the members of our proposed strategic advisory group. Also, two people who are familiar to you, Chris Deutschman and Valerie Martinez from your current team. We're happy that they agreed to join the Ogilvy team for that continuity that Jeff mentioned. And Deborah Nakatomi's here, one of our key program leads for the multicultural communications. So thank you to the colleagues for being here. Did I miss anybody? I don't know if I did. I hope not. Okay. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul to make a few remarks, and then I'm going to jump back in unless he says something wrong, and then I'll push him aside.
Thanks. Thank you. Good morning. I'm sure you'd love nothing more than to spend a couple hours with 200 slides on Ogilvy PR. We'll cut that back by 198, so we'll go quickly. We are a global firm. We have offices around the world, 64 offices. More important to you is that we have a strong California presence, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Sacramento. And we have a depth of experience with the federal government and the California state government. In fact, our largest client is the United States government, so we're aware of how to handle that kind of work and to process and administer that work in a proper fashion. We do have specialized services in public affairs, digital influence, and community engagement that will be brought to bear here. And as Mr. Barker mentioned, we have retained the relationship with your current contractor to provide high-speed rail expertise along with the services that we bring. This is just a sampling of some of the larger clients that we have in California, technology clients. Virgin America is a client in Los Angeles. LG is a large global client, and then we've just begun some work for Ford. That's environmental work that's led here out of the San Francisco office. So with that, I'll turn it over to Christy.
I also wanted to call your attention to some of our state clients. I'm thrilled that the Treasurer's Office gave us such a good reference. We've been doing work with the state of California for a long time, and we're really happy to be right in the middle of some of the state's biggest projects, not only selling the bonds that are financing some of the things like flood safe and other things, but also keeping California safe and keeping pensions protected and keeping workers' compensation in place. And if you have any questions for us at any point about the work we do for the state, we're happy to address it. Jeff asked us to address two main things after introducing ourselves. One is, what do you get when you're retaining Ogilvy Public Relations to be your comprehensive communication contractor? And two, what would we do when we initially get started right out of the gate? So I want to mention that I'm glad that we put as number one of the first things a cohesive and consistent messaging, because we see the need for message discipline. So, Mr. Dearden, I hope that answers your question. We know that's going to be really important. And as a part of that assessment that Mr. Barker mentioned, we will be doing some interviews with you as well to assess your perceived areas of importance so we can make sure we address that. But to us, success not only includes harnessing the power of the support you've already developed at the local level and at the state level, but putting a spotlight on it so that balances any of the negatives. It's really important that the authority has that really visible means of support that was certainly evidenced when the bonds were passed. Okay, and so in terms of moving forward, right here. Oh, thank you. Right out of the gate, the first thing we plan to do is to start with research, not only the internal assessments I just mentioned, but also public surveys. We believe pretty strongly that you don't know what you don't know, and all of you that come from the political world know how important it is to assess what you don't know before you make plans to move forward. We believe pretty strongly in the needs for some very specific protocols, not only for internal communication among all the teams with the authority staff and the board, but also for how we're going to do outreach. So protocol development will be critical. The technical assistance is the orientation training that Mr. Barker mentioned, and that would be to the professional program teams, project teams, but as well to maybe some of the organizations and the communities that really support high-speed train, but they could benefit from some workshops on how to more effectively communicate the message. You know, the website assessment expansion has always been a topic of discussion. It's time to start looking at that seriously so that when people go to the web for information about high-speed train, they can personalize it and localize it with, I live in this zip code, what does this mean, what's going on here? That will be a pretty important task. And certainly making sure the outreach materials are updated and consistent from region to region will be important. So that's our first steps right out of the gate. The initial contract will only be several months, and so that's enough to keep us really busy. But we will work with you closely and the staff closely to make sure that we're prioritizing things the way the board would like us to. So with that, we're through with our brief presentation. I do want to tell you that this is a very important opportunity for us. We take it very, very seriously. We were thrilled to be selected to come in for an interview with the panel, and we're thrilled to be here today. So we'll certainly entertain any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Shank.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me apologize. I'm going to have to leave, so I just have a couple of comments, questions. I know the reputation of your firm, and it's sterling and worldwide, certainly. I see here media relations, and I know you have offices, you said Sacramento, San Francisco, L.A. I'm from San Diego, and with all due respect to my Northern California colleagues, it is the second largest city in California, but it's a little different there. I'd like to know, and we have a media problem challenge that is high-speed rail in San Diego, and I just wanted to know, just very quickly, whether you're aware of this and if you have a plan to address that as you develop your media relations plan.
Well, I'm thrilled to tell you that one of our team members, one of our senior team members, Mindy Fletcher, is from San Diego, lives in San Diego, and will be not only advising the media relations program statewide, but she has a particular interest in what's going on with the San Diego media. So we'll be very much looking forward to talking with you as we develop a San Diego region-specific program. But yes, we will be doing that.
Okay. And then one other quick question, if I may. You have Chris and her team as part of it. Who's going to be in charge, and who is day-to-day going to be that is high-speed rails person to turn to the contract?
That's a good question. It's a legitimate one. I will be the day-to-day or point person, the senior principal in charge for this program, and I'm sure as Mr. Barker contacted some of our references, they probably validated that when the senior people at Ogilvy get involved, we really are involved. Although Chris's expertise and experience will be critical, so we'll be working very closely. She'll be on this probably more than half-time, full-time, throughout the course of the year. So between the two of us, we're going to have probably more than daily conversations with the staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kopp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
David?
I want to follow up on that. I want to follow on that. Are there any other subcontractors besides the subcontractor Deutschman Communications Group mentioned on page 7 of our staff report?
We have several subcontractors.
Who are they?
Nakatomi and Associates.
Pardon me?
Nakatomi and Associates.
Where are they located?
They're based in Santa Monica, but they do work statewide as well. Imprenta Communications Group. And you know what, sir, we can get you a list of these if you would like, but Imprenta, I-M-P-R-E-N-T-A. Imprenta Communications Group, based in L.A. as well, but they do statewide work with multicultural communities. Then,
how about the Bay Area?
Excuse me.
Okay. Both Deborah and Imprenta are do statewide work, and it's on multicultural communications. We also have Richard Robinson in the Bay Area doing community engagement, and he's also somebody who has been working for the authority in the past, so he's also part of the team that's been carrying over.
He has? I don't recall. All right.
Valerie Martinez in the southern part of the state.
Yeah, I'd like that list.
Sure, we'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
And on that same page, there's a reference to a strategic council team as being included in the proposal.
Mm-hmm.
And who is that?
We put a strategic advisory group together to be able to give staff and our team the insights that come from having people with political expertise on both sides of the aisle available all the time. And in addition to Mindy Fletcher and Maggie Linden, who are Ogilvy staff members, see if I can get all these off the top of my head. Steve Smith, who's here, so you can help me, Steve, if I forget anybody. We also have Dan Schnurr and Rob Stutzman on the Republican side, Derry Schrago, who you know, and David Townsend.
Not all of us.
Hmm?
No, that's all right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Did I forget anybody, Chris? Huh? Oh, and Tony Russo. Thank you. And Tony Russo.
So it's Mr. Schnurr, Mr. Scrow, Mr. Russo,
Mr. Stutzman,
and
Mr. Townsend.
And what is their responsibility?
Strategic thinking, asking the right questions, prodding the discussions to make sure that we're anticipating concerns or issues that may come up that maybe we're not. The other thing that we suggested to the panel, which they seem to like to hear, I know staff might benefit from, is the opportunity to do brainstorming with the strategic advisory group, with the staff, where they can even argue amongst themselves about how to position an issue that might be prickly, how to deal with a media concern, that kind of thing. And they're, of course, available to the board as well.
And did you mention David Townsend?
Yes, David Townsend's on there.
And just to confirm, this is not a compensated group?
It is compensated. They're compensated for the day of their time and their travel to come up for this purpose.
So they are, in effect, legally your subcontract?
They are. They will be, each of them individually, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Very good. Is there a motion?
Well, I want to make a comment.
All right, Mr. Kopp.
All right. This memorandum, as has already been noted by other members, notably Commissioner Katz, is the kind of information that was previously lacking on this matter and others. And it certainly accurately reflects on page 3 a couple of examples of inadequate public relations effort. There are others, too, including the 2 pending lawsuits where we've been swamped, routed. And I'm willing to, in my view, take a chance on approving the proposed contract. But I want it clear that if there isn't improvement, I will specifically act to rely on the termination clause that is every one of our agreements. I hope that I am happily persuaded that this is indeed a material improvement, but if it is not, I'm going to act accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Kopp. I want to say Mr. Kopp's point is a very interesting way to welcome a new contractor into service. But I think if I could receive the liberty of expressing that the entire board has had challenges and frustration with the way messages have been delivered and how we've responded and how we've served the public. I think that was evident when the executive director said we need to have someone who has an official responsibility within the authority as a deputy director in Mr. Barker, someone who can oversee those responsibilities, and two, how we can have much more direct authority and oversight in our communications, public relations, community contact. Some folks look at the dollar amount, and I think we're spending about the same dollar amount, but under layers of existing contractors, where the PR portion is a sub to other work. And our desire here is to have a much greater oversight, because the board was not feeling, nor the senior staff, that the messages that are important to the community outreach that is necessary was being done properly. So, yes, we might have had a hiccup along the way in terms of hiring a PR firm, but as Ms. Schenk pointed out, our goal is to make sure we have the very best team assembled, and I feel comfortable that our staff has done that, and that recommendation made to us will bring about a change, Mr. Kopp and board colleagues, that in fact we don't want to start out a relationship by saying everything has been done or there has been some poor action in the past, therefore you better do it better. The whole concept here is we know you will do it better, but because we are talking about public dollars, there is always elements within this contract that says on an annual review, if there is a need to replace a firm or change the direction, there is proper reliance upon us communicating with you and you with us to make sure there's progress being made and the issues that all of us are concerned about are being addressed. Yet I want to be encouraging in that discussion to say that I feel very good about a team coming forward that can do that, and I have confidence in the evaluation that was made by our staff and the staff of the OCTA, LAMTA, and SAMTRANS, all who were asked to participate in this evaluation. So I think that's what brings us to this point, and I'm looking forward to moving forward with this action. Any further discussion, Mr. Dearden? Or, Mr. Dearden, would you hold 1 second? Mr. Umberg.
Either he wants to speak or he's dying.
I have two questions, and I'm sure the materials are very complete. Unfortunately, I couldn't download them. First of all, is the contract terminable without cause of 30 days' notice? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay. Then the second question, I sent the question to you, Mr. Chair, but a variation on that is that are we going to be told, for example, what other clients they may have in the same area? So if Ogilvy takes on another high-speed rail system or an analogous project, is there a mechanism to let us know that?
Okay, that's a very good question. There was on the slide representing the state clients represented by Ogilvy. I believe Caltrans was on that slide, so that is a similar client. But in terms of high-speed rail clients across the country, since you are a national firm, are there any other high-speed rail clients you have?
No.
Could we, I think Mr. Umberg's question is, and if there's a contemplation by Ogilvy to take on a high-speed rail client in any part of the country or around the world, I guess, could we establish a procedure, Mr. Morshed, by which we would be notified of that so that information is provided to us?
We would be happy to do that, whether it's in the contract or not. We would talk with you first. It's, as a matter of course, we typically consult with our clients before we bring in somebody who's in their same industry or a competing industry, so we would do that.
Very good. Do you hear that, Mr. Umberg?
Yes. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Dearden.
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking with welcoming thoughts towards this new organization and appreciate the continuity that you've arranged within the group to relate to the prior effort. I think you picked the best of the past to put together even a better future. There are 2 points that I'd like to stress that you may want to look into immediately.
Okay.
And the first is consistency of message, and I'd like to use as an example, and it's not just message, but it's also process, consistency of message and process. And I'd like to use as an example the process that occurred in the Visalia area recently, where without the board knowing it at all, there was an announcement in the newspaper allegedly quoting some of our engineering staff in that area declaring that Visalia would not be included in the study. I had no pre-warning of that at all. I don't believe that decision can be made by a person on the engineering staff without some reference to the board. And it certainly caught us all by surprise when the media started calling about that issue. So there's message and process. Second is, and I'll use as an example, again, one area, but I have an idea that it's occurring in other areas too. Misinformation is causing serious media relations problems in the Mid-Peninsula, Atherton, Menlo Park, Palo Alto area especially. That misinformation coming from sometimes inadvertently our own staff, but then again it's being presented by opponents, blatantly providing false information to the media and then having no correction. No information being provided that would counter that misinformation, and I think Q related to that earlier. So would you relate to those two examples, not those two specific cases, but those two examples, as kind of in-the-weeds detail that you really need to be on immediately so that it doesn't, the kind of a things are like a sore that festers, and or the rotten apple in the barrel, if you'd like to use another example. And you got to get that apple out of the barrel immediately. And please figure out a way, and let us know at some time in the future. You can call us individually or give us a report, how you would be creating kind of flying squads of emergency response to nip those problems in the bud. You want to avoid them if you can, but if you can't avoid them, you need to have a way of countering them immediately so that misinformation isn't allowed to float around. It's corrected. And so please consider that as early tasks.
Thank you. I will.
Thank you. As you can understand, if you do get this job, there's a lot to it. Any further discussion? Is there a motion?
Move approve. Second.
Mr. Katz moves. Mr. Dearden seconds the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Morshed. Pringle, aye. Mr. Umberg?
Crane, aye.
Well, Mr. Umberg's gone, sorry. Go ahead. Mr. Crane? Aye. Mr. Kopp? Aye. Mr. Katz? Aye. Mr. Dearden? Aye. Ms. Flores?
Aye.
Very good. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Sure, here to serve. Congratulations. Next item before us is item number 10. Mr. Morshed.
Mr. Chairman, this is the third time that the program management oversight contract is before you. The first time was a couple of years ago. We selected the team, and then we had to terminate that due to lack of performance. We brought another contract to you a few months ago, which you approved, and just as we signed the contract, the firm was purchased by one of our other contractors, which created a conflict, and we couldn't proceed. So we had to put it back for a contract. The purpose of this program and this contract is for some experts in the field to look over the shoulder of program manager and make sure that the program manager is performing the work as it's necessary and it's staying on schedule and so forth, and do some of the activities that the current our staff is not quite equipped to do. So with that, I'll let Kerry Purvey describe to you the process and the rest.
Well, Jeff Barker really raised the bar in having a PowerPoint presentation for staff presentation, so next time I will have a PowerPoint presentation for you. As Mehdi said, this is the third time around for the program management oversight contract. The process is, in the first two go-arounds, we did a request for proposal process, which is similar to what you just approved for the outreach contract. This time around, staff did an evaluation of the needs to perform the work of the program management oversight and determined the best procurement vehicle was a request for qualifications. This requires licensed engineers, architects, environmentalists, so it does raise the bar in the level of professionalism for the work and the personnel identified for doing the work. We had an interview panel that consisted of myself, Dan Levitt, Carrie Bowen, Kent Riffey on the authority staff, and we had Bob Doty with Caltrain and Lam Nguyen from Caltrans participating on the panel. We looked at their written SOQs. We had 9 proposals that came in. We identified 5 that met the criteria specified in the RFQ, and they were asked to come to do oral presentations. We had 5 firms come in for oral presentations. Those were T.Y. Lin, Hill International, PGH Wong, Booz Allen Hamilton, and L.S. Gallegos. Upon completion of the oral interviews, it was determined unanimously by our panel. We ranked the firms in order of their competence, their SOQ, their proposal that they submitted, and their oral presentation. T.Y. Lin was ranked 1, Hill International 2, PGH Wong number 3, Booz Allen Hamilton 4, and L.S. Gallegos number 5. The next step in our process is negotiations. The executive director will enter into negotiations with the top-ranked firm. If we're unsuccessful in coming to a reasonable and fair cost for the work to be performed, he will move on to the next eligible or next highest-ranked contractor, being Hill International, and it goes on down the line until we come up with an acceptable, fair, and reasonable contract. The terms of the contract, based on our negotiations, could begin as early as the middle or end of November and end at June 2013, which coincides with our program management contract, PB's contract. It's an $8 million contract. However, it is done on an annual work program, so every year we will negotiate the scope of work as well as their budget and the personnel assigned. So again, it's a cap of $8 million, not necessarily we will get to the $8 million. With that, I'm recommending that you authorize the executive director to begin negotiations with T.Y. Lin International.
Very good. Any discussion on this item, Mr. Crane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Carrie. Who was on your evaluation committee for this one?
It was myself, Dan Levitt, Carrie Bowen, and Kent Riffey on the authority staff, and then we had Bob Doty with Caltrain and Lam Nguyen from Caltrans Division of Engineering Services.
And what do we know about the affiliations that T.Y. Lin has? Let me go back to sort of the question that Quentin asked about the communication contract. What do we know about their affiliations? Who owns the company, for example?
Well, T.Y. Lin owns the company. I don't know. I've got Mark Ashley here from T.Y. Lin. He can probably explain that better to you than I can.
All right. Why don't we get that answer, if we could?
Yeah, I want to know. Yeah, we'll want to know who owns it and all that. Unless I'm misunderstanding something, this is a responsibility that has enormous leverage. Correct me if I'm wrong, this is a project management group that oversees and provides guidance to us with respect to overseeing all of our subcontractors.
No, just
Parsons Brinckerhoff.
Just Parsons Brinckerhoff.
But Parsons Brinckerhoff then oversees a bunch of other subcontractors. Yeah. So there's enormous leverage in the knowledge that comes from this group.
Yes.
Because we are a very small staff, so we're going to be relying upon them to tell us how Parsons Brinckerhoff is performing, and in turn, that's going to affect how well our evaluation of all these subcontractors. And we were talking about the largest public works program in the United States involving hundreds of millions of dollars worth of contracts. So not only do I want to know about the affiliations of T.Y. Lin, but what I'd like to understand better is the way they're going to I'd like to learn more about how the process works, that this organization interacts with us in looking critically at the work that Parsons Brinckerhoff is doing and all the subcontractors are doing.
I know. Yes. I have two people. I do need to explain the RFQ, the A&E contracting process. It's not like the RFP where we could ask Ogilvy to come and present to the board because we've made a selection. We have to go through the negotiations. At the completion of the negotiations, we'll ask T.Y. Lin to come and discuss it with you. I understand your questions, and I'd be happy to provide that information to you.
So isn't it true on a A&E contract, price cannot be a part of that scoring? So we rank them, the firms, based upon qualifications, scope of work, capability, the personnel, all of those other factors that you have identified within your request. You have a ranking. You are bringing that to us as we will then authorize the next step, which is the negotiating of the contract, which will set the price and all of those things. And if there is a successful negotiation, then that final approval of the contract comes back before us.
Yes.
Is that right?
Well, it's, I don't know if George wants to comment on that, but it is a requirement of the SOQ process that we have to negotiate, come to an agreement, as you stated, with one of the highest ranked firms or going down the line.
Right.
That indicates an acceptance of the contract.
But I guess my point is there will be a firm that is if we authorize the negotiation to move forward based upon your rankings, there will be a firm or hopefully a contract that will be derived between a firm and the authority, and that will have the final presentation before this board for a vote.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman, provided that the director is able to negotiate at a fair price. The point is that the first firm with which negotiations would occur would be T.Y. Lin, because it's the number one ranked. If those negotiations are not successful, then they go to number two, and that's the clarification that I wanted to make sure Commissioner Crane was familiar with.
So one of the issues is the evaluation has taken place to create the ranking. Therefore, that's the ranking by which the contract negotiation will take place through that course, that ranking. This is not an approval of a contract. That will be brought back before us, and we will have that opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I finish with?
Yes, Mr. Crane.
So I see this as sort of like the crucial linchpin, pressure point for this board, this contract. Again, we've got like an inverted, we have like a pyramid. We have this board, we have a relatively small staff, we have a relatively small staff that's going to be relying upon this contract to oversee our project manager, who in turn is overseeing hundreds of contractors, and we're talking about billions of dollars involving state money, federal money, private money, whatever. So, am I right? This is an incredibly important contract.
Yes, it is.
How does T.Y. Lin, or whomever we award it to, work with, is it MEDI, I suppose, principally? What's the process? And maybe this isn't the right place for me to understand this, Mr. Chairman, to understand exactly how the process works, or not exactly, but in enough detail so that I know that we have a procedure in place where we really are going to be able to drill down using these guys to understand how well things are going on below them.
Mr. Chairman, the way the program management oversight works is that the T.Y. Lin, if that's the team we select, they will be looking over the work that PB is doing, all the work that in terms of program management is doing. And they're going to take a look at it and say, are those things consistent with the engineering standards that they should be following? They're going to look at it and say, if it costs this amount of work to perform this amount of, this amount of dollars to carry this amount of work, is that consistent with this, industry standard, or are they 50% or 100% higher? And then inform us so we can question the program management work. They're also going to look at the schedule that we have established with PB and others to maintain, and they're going to track it and see, are they maintaining that schedule? And if they are not, then they communicate to it, and then we will negotiate. So their role is to basically check and make sure that the work that's being performed for the authority is tracking what the agreements are and consistent with the normal practice of engineering work, design, analysis, or are they wasting, spending a lot of money doing something that they shouldn't be doing? They'll inform us, which in turn then we'll discuss it with the program manager and ask for the changes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Dirvan.
I relate to David's concern about the project. I'm not concerned about the selection, but I am concerned about the gravity of this decision, which we thought we'd made a couple of times before, but beyond our circumstances, beyond our control, made it not apply. The issue will be here that this organization will check time, performance on schedule, quality of the performance, and money. And they'll bring to us, probably through MEDI, at every one of our meetings, charts showing those three variables on every contract that we've got. And we may not see them all because there's so many, but certainly at the top, we'll see whether they're performing to schedule, time, and money. And we'll be able, and by the way, Tony's been trying to do that for us, working in two different capacities in the past, but Tony has an inherent conflict because he's overseeing himself. And traditionally, this is the procedure for making sure that there's a check and balance. I believe Tony's honesty and real attempt at doing the right job, by the way. David, you asked the first question, which was the key question. Does T.Y. Lin have any conflicts of interest? And we need to know that. And I would assume that you've checked that, but it has to be based also not only on PB, but also the subcontractors. And if T.Y. Lin has financial relationships with those organizations, then there's a conflict. And we have to think twice about this. And that's the question that David asked first, and we need to know that answer.
Not just for this, I mean, on a going forward basis. I mean,
Okay.
That's going to be a standard form of all.
Well, especially for this
that
contract.
review and evaluation has taken place or will take place, Ms. Porvahidi?
Which has taken?
Yes, none of the contractors was part of the requirement. They could not be affiliated with Parsons Brinker Hawk or any of our regional contractors to be selected to be interviewed for the work, the PMO work.
Very good. Mr. Crane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But I think just on that point, Rod also mentioned subcontractors. I mean, we effectively need this person to be like Mother Teresa and no prospective business with these other people. But the question I have is this. Is this the sort of organization that would have been able to tell the Boston authorities that the prime contractor, project manager, whatever, on the big dig was doing things wrong? Is this going to be our early alert system?
This certainly is our expectation that, yes, to sound that warning that there are issues involved here that needs to be addressed and address it ahead of time. I don't know what the big dig had and didn't have, but this is our defensive mechanism for the work that's going to be performed to protect the public's interest and keep honest people honest and et cetera and all the other activities that needs to be done.
Very good, Mr. Kopp.
Let me put that in another way. Yesterday at the Executive Administrative Committee, we took action which included approval of proposed table of organization. One of those positions would be the Chief of Project Controls and Risk Management, performing duties tantamount to the same duties contemplated by this contract. Is that accurate, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
That being the case, and looking into the future.
Well, Mr. Kopp, I think I said yes. I think what it is it would not be the same. We would have a contractor doing that role. We would have staff, though, overseeing that function. We would not hire an entire engineering auditing team for that purpose, but we would have someone who has a responsibility to oversee those that we have hired for those functions.
Well, doesn't that raises a question that I had yesterday, I saved till today. In effect, we should be doing this in-house. but we don't have the personnel to do it. We don't have enough bodies, so we're contracting for it. Isn't that what it amounts to? All right. And then if there comes a time when some positions, including this chief, I hope we'll re-examine the need to have a separate project oversight contract.
Very good. Mr. Dearden.
I don't think we'll ever be to a position of having or wanting to have a huge staff that's going to be required to do the oversight that we're contemplating hiring here on this contractor, so I don't relate to Q's comment. But I want to go back to David's comment about the Big Dig. David, they had contract oversight, but the Board of Control didn't pay attention to them. They recognized that contractor was in terrible trouble, and they came back to that board, the policy authorities, and let the policy authorities know that the contractor was in trouble, and the board didn't take the actions necessary to remedy the problems. So it's really as much our responsibility, maybe as communicating with us, to make sure the information that's going to come back from T.Y. Lin is implemented and not just passed off and allowing the overruns to occur.
Thank you, Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to be mindful of what amount of time you want to devote to this. As I mentioned, I think this is a very serious issue that deserves a lot of attention. Is this project manager going to report, this project management oversight going to report to the board, or is it reporting to METI?
Currently, it's reporting to METI.
So, and in the Big Dig case, you're saying that the project management staff, that project management contractor reported directly to the board and the board didn't act?
I'm not sure whether it was to the board or through the chief executive officer, but the board knew of the issue. And in fact, the contract management oversight people were left with egg on their face inappropriately. They'd identified the problems, and the remedial action wasn't taken.
Mr. Chairman, I just said, how much time? I don't want to take up too much time. Are you saying we're going to have time to spend more time in discussing this, or is this something where maybe I discuss it with the Operations Committee?
I think it would be good to discuss with the Operations Committee, with the Executive Director, and in fact, we can have a full discussion when we have a contract before us.
Okay.
In fact, what we're doing today is authorizing or recognizing the staff's ranking so negotiations could begin, and no contract is being let today. But we are accepting the ranking for the negotiations to take place.
Right,
and just to put it into context, I think we have 8 more items on our agenda. Following that, we have asked representatives from SNCF to make an hour presentation, and I know we have 2 closed session activities, and I know at least one additional board member, namely me, will be departing in an hour from now.
So you want to keep talking about this?
You're
obviously.
more than welcome to do what you wish.
Then we'll talk about it further. The last comment I'll make is,
yes,
I would disagree with my friend Quentin's suggestion that if we ever get somebody on board, we do this in-house. I want somebody outside that we can fire if they don't if we find that they haven't done what they're supposed to do in a nanosecond. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you. Any further discussion on this? And again, this is, I believe, accepting the ranking and directing staff to negotiate with those in the ranked order based upon with the purpose of establishing a contract. Is there a motion? Moved by Mr. Dearden, second by Mr. Kopp. Any further discussion? Mr. Morshed. Aye.
Mr. Crane, the Judge Kopp.
Aye.
Mr. Katz, Mr. Umberg.
Aye.
Mr. Katz.
Aye.
Mr. Dearden. And Ms. Flores.
Aye.
Very good. That motion passes. Item 11, I'll make it brief. We had a executive committee meeting yesterday, and as was referenced by Mr. Kopp, we received further information from KPMG as they're finalizing their report on organizational restructuring for the board. The committee decided it would be best, as we move forward with 3 critical issues regarding organization, to seek input from those members of the peer review committee that have been appointed and are serving. I understand at this time there are only 3. If there are more between now and next month, we will certainly send a letter to them. But what we will be seeking from them is their individual input on the organizational chart recommendations made by KPMG, their individual input on the prioritization of key personnel hires in terms of seeing that list of individuals, not names but responsibilities, and see if that is the right prioritization of key individuals or key positions. And 3, to review our staffing budget needs and to make recommendations as to if that's appropriate in terms of the level of staffing necessary for the next year. That was the direction given by the Executive Committee as it pertains to follow up on that organizational chart. Therefore, a letter will be sent out and specifically asking that information from those individual members. Additionally, the authority or the Executive Committee asked for the authority budget as it presently stands in terms of this current year. I think every member here has it. And it will be something in its very generalized state posted on the website, so everyone can see, in fact, that this year's operating allocation of $139 million, of which $137 million is for contract services expressed or program services expressed within that those general categories. I think it was also recommended that that level of budget detail, not complete detail, but that level of budget detail be always available on the website. And I would also like to ask if, in fact, the agendas for these committees also be more readily available on the website, as we're adding committee meetings so that people don't necessarily have to go into the general meeting information to understand when the committees will be held and their purposes. But that is basically a report from the Executive Committee. Mr. Katz, item 12, a report from the Operations Committee.
Thank you. Very briefly, we met yesterday for the first time, and I think the one thing that became very clear from the meeting was trying to anticipate our needs a little farther down the road. One of the things was, I think there was a virtual endorsement from the discussion we had of the KPMG study in terms of organization and where we need to move in the future as we transition to a building organization. And, moving forward on those kinds of structural changes, there was also significant discussion about the need to be prepared now, or start getting prepared now, for the ARA funds that will be coming or announced, we believe, at the end of January. I mean, even if we don't get our full request, which I think we're in very good shape to receive from everything we hear, even a minimum allocation to California would be a significant amount of money, more so than we have right now in contracts by probably 9 or 10-fold. And in order to be able to deal with that, we believe we need to start the discussions now with the peer review group, with the governor's office, with the legislature, to give us some authority to go out and start putting people in place so that we can start recognizing the change that will come when those funds become available. We don't want to be in the position of saying, you hear about getting the funds on Wednesday and then start looking for personnel, et cetera, on Thursday. We want to be able to start spending that money appropriately and thoughtfully as soon as it arrives here, and to do that we have to be prepared ahead of time. So that was the direction and the discussion at Ops Committee.
Very good. Therefore, without objection, I'd like to go back to the beginning of our agenda and go to item 2 in terms of business plan update. Mr. Barker, this is a very important item. There is a statutory requirement for business plan update to be provided to the legislature, as well as the state auditor or something, one entity.
LAO, the Legislative Analyst's
LAO,
Office.
by December 15th. Therefore, I know you are engaged in this process, and I do not want to shorten your presentation, but there is a general rule: you cannot be bad and brief.
I actually didn't have a presentation prepared. It was just to inform you that we are engaged in the process. We're moving along, moving toward that December 15th deadline, meeting with the appropriate legislative staff to get their input. And I just wanted to let you know we're open for your input in helping develop the plan as well. So just mostly it's informational, let you know that we're where we are in the process. No grand presentation. Yeah.
On schedule.
Mr. Deardon?
You're on schedule.
We feel we are. I mean, it's a kind of an ongoing process, but we have another month and a half, and I'm confident we'll beat the deadline.
Well, on that, I do, though, want to ensure that we don't necessarily, a fantastic representative within the legal community earlier today suggested to me that we maximize the value of some of the financial interests or legal interests that care about what goes on at the authority and not pay them, but get their advice and get their input with elements within our business plan. So as you're preparing this, I think you should be very open to solicit input and work through a variety of channels to, modify our business plan and get input and responses back on that.
Absolutely.
And with that, I also think it would be good for you to individually provide some update to the board members over the next month as you are working this through, so we all are aware of how that process is coming.
That is the plan. Yep.
Mr. Kopp.
How will that jibe with our meeting schedule?
Our next meeting in December is the first Thursday in December, and therefore it will be a little over a week before this product is to be completed. So we'll get a better understanding of how this has come together. I would like to make sure Mr. Barker shares with you over the next month, as he will be devoting much of his time just to this project. Very good. There's no action to be taken. Any further discussion on that? Is there any immediate need for members' reports or executive? Well, how about if we'll continue those two items, because I would like to go to SNCF's presentation. Yeah, I might need to do the closed session. I would prefer. Can we do the closed session in this room in the back?
No, it's not available. They won't let us use it.
They won't let us use that room in the back?
My understanding is they won't.
Can someone figure out if we could use one of these rooms in the back? Are you telling me we can't?
They won't be able to.
Oh, I would, let's leave the lunch there, but let's use the room in the back for closed session. We don't need to bring any food in there. We'll just go in and do that job.
We want to do it very quickly.
Very good. So in the meantime, how about if I ask the Executive Director to give us a brief report?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I was just going to say that my most of my reports are already covered in the weekly report that I give to you, so there really isn't anything significant and new that I can add to that.
Very good. Mr. Morshed, you've been doing a great job in providing weekly updates on all critical items for the Executive Director report. And that's available online. It's emailed out to people. But I would really like to make sure anyone who wishes to get that is able to contact the authority, contact Mr. Barker directly so that they get on that email distribution list so that you can keep up with it. Members' reports.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I do have several items, but I
Deardon?
would like permission to add them to the minutes outside of the meeting, with your consent.
That'd be very good. Any other members' reports? All right, so we are going to try to keep a closed session very brief. How much time do we assume this will take? 10 minutes?
10 plus 5.
All right. Does anybody have a calculator? So we will stand in recess for closed session for 15 minutes, and when we return, hear a presentation from our French partners. I'd like to call the High-Speed Rail Authority Board meeting back into session. There are plenty of board members in the room, not necessarily in their chairs, so we're all here. I'd like to report out from closed session regarding an item on our agenda dealing with the Atherton case. The board developed a consensus to bring to the board's agenda in December as an action item to comply with the court order on the Bay Area to Central Valley programmatic EIR, that in fact this item could have been addressed now. However, we wish to ensure that we are in full compliance with Bagley-Keene. Therefore, it will be placed on our December agenda for that action. All right. Now we're at the point in our agenda to hear a presentation from our French partners. And we are very excited to hear from you as we are going to start hearing from a variety of our partners where we have established MOUs. You are lucky enough to be the first, but you won't be the last, so you better do a real good job. And if, in fact, the chairman slips out, please do not take it personally. But we welcome you. Thank you.
Is there something? Oh, here we go.
It's done.
Well, good afternoon, Chairman Pringle, Mr. Morshed, and board members. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. My name is Lindsay Simmons. I'm with the firm of Jackson Kelly in Washington, D.C. We represent SNCF, the French National Railway. I'd like to just briefly introduce Antoine Eversing, who's the transportation attaché from the French Embassy, who has been so kind enough.
Antoine, raise your hand so everybody sees you. There you go.
To put this together for us today. And then I would like to briefly introduce you to Dennis Dutay, who is to my left. He's the Vice President and Director of SNCF Freight Operations, but is about to change his position and to move with his family to California, to Northern California, to commit himself full-time to your high-speed rail initiative and to this corridor.
I have had a discussion with him, doing my very best, Mr. Kopp and Mr. Crane, to get him to move to Southern California, but I've not been successful.
Dennis's presentation is intended today to be highly interactive, so I would encourage all of the board members and Mr. Morshed and others to please feel free to jump in at any time and ask questions as he moves through his materials. And in addition, when the presentation is completed, if anyone has follow-up questions, we'd be happy to receive them either telephonically or by email and to follow up with you. We want to make sure everyone gets as much out of this as possible. Thank you
so much. Welcome, Mr. Dutay.
Good afternoon, Chairman Pringle, Mr. Morshed, and Ms. and Mr. board members. Thank you very much for the opportunity to give this presentation and have a chance to be part of the action in this fantastic project and help it become true.
The content of my presentation will be the following. So present first SNCF, who we are, what we can do, our relevant experience, what 20 years of experience at 186 miles per hour mean. Then approach and options on financing. What can the private sector bring? And last issue, dealing with freight railroads. So SNCF is a major group. Numbers here are for the first half of 2009. So approximately $18 billion revenue with a positive operational margin close to $1 billion. What is important is a net profit for the past 4 years with net profit up to $1.5 billion. Here are represented, in short, the four major branches of SNCF. First to the left, infrastructure and what is relevant to a project in California, for instance, or anywhere else, with engineering, international development, and stations with a company called AREP, which is designing stations all around the world, including in China. Second branch is commuter rail, and I just mentioned Keolis, in which we have a majority share, and which operates in the United Kingdom, has some 3 franchises, and also in Sweden, Germany, and is supposed to be awarded tonight the operation of the VRE, Virginia Railway Express, although apparently it makes Amtrak mad. Next branch is intercity passenger rail, with a number of services, including internet reservation service. We are the number 1 internet commercial company in France. The second item, IDTGV, is in fact low-cost TGV, meaning that we have started a few years ago to implement a new idea, which is selling the empty seats and the empty train sets, and this has helped us a lot bring our revenues up and enjoy the highest, by far, occupancy rate in our trains. Rail Europe is selling tickets and tourism, including in the United States. And then we have 6 operating subsidiaries, and I will expand on that later, in all surrounding countries, basically. The last part is freight and logistics, just to mention that the main brand is Geodis, and Geodis has enjoyed last year to win the largest ever logistics contract in the world, which is taking care of the worldwide logistics of IBM for the next 15 years. And this was an over $15 billion contract. Still about ourselves, we have only one shareholder, which is the French state, 100%, but run like a private company. The APE, we could translate it as Agency for Public Shares, and this is an agency which makes sure that the state is a good and efficient shareholder, which was not the case always in the past. What is specific in being such a company is we have a privileged access to funds thanks to our AAA rating, which of course enables to borrow relatively cheap money, have lower insurance costs, and get easy guarantee. In relation to politics, I mean that as we are a public company, many politics thinks we are their own company, and so in terms of, for instance, service, they would expect SNCF to comply with their expectations, if not demand, which is stopping everywhere. And of course, we need to be cautious about that and to remain efficient. Relations to unions, I think this is also important to the situation here, because we have high standards of social guarantees in France, including specific utilization rules. We need to find the right balance between these rules and also economical efficiency. And so we are very confident that we can handle and operate the situation here, unlike what Amtrak seems to think, that they are the only ones who could handle this kind of situation. So in short, SNCF is entrepreneur's efficiency with public servant spirit. Now, our experience, first in France, this is a map of the various high-speed lines which were implemented, with the first one being in 1981 between Paris and Lyon. and then the last one between Paris and the east of France, which is operated at 200 miles per hour. So overall, 6 successive projects of over 1,100 miles of high-speed lines. And, of course, these lines are connected with the conventional lines, an extensive network which is adding 3,700 miles to the network. Important to California, I think, California would have a more favorable situation in terms of having a standalone system. But, of course, it raises the question of connectivity, how it connects to other rail systems and commuter rail and transits and so on. But being dedicated and separate is, of course, much more favorable in terms of revenue and in terms of quality. Of course, this experience in France shows the ability to master and implement quickly, and this ability has constantly improved over the years. Now, this is just a chart showing the different projects, the six or seven we can mention, with the various lengths and operating speed. Worth mentioning, on the bottom is there was the October issue of Railway Gazette International, which shows yearly the best trip times in the world. And so SNCF still enjoys the world record with 104 miles covered in 37 minutes, which is 169 miles per hour average. Now, in terms of situation, this is a situation in Europe. Of course, in the world, it's much different. But SNCF, still after 25 years, is the leader of high-speed rail service in Europe. This chart is in passenger miles, so 53%. And also what is extremely important is the small chart on the right showing that EBIT has always been above 20% and still like that today. So SNCF's operation in high-speed rail is extremely profitable, although the tolls are increasing every year enormously. But this is very important. No subsidy, extremely profitable. This is a very little complicated, and sorry not to have been able to make it easier to read, but there are some critical messages here. This is a chart showing the situation for the TGV East project, so an overall cost of the project of 5.1 billion euros in 2005, and you have on the left the costs for the infrastructure, so 3.681 billion euros, and on the right in pink you have the operators or operation-related costs, which are on the top rolling stock, the train sets, and the bottom are stations and depots. So on the left, this is all public money. We could say that the white part is coming from the state. The blue part is coming from Europe, the European Commission, so we could say here it would be the federal state. RFF is the infrastructure owner, but it's a public agency. Luxembourg is a neighbor, and all these are local communities. So basically, all the green part is local communities' money. And on the right, all the train sets were financed entirely by SNCF, and stations and depot were paid by SNCF for more than half, the rest being, again, public money from the state, the European community, and local communities. And this, of course, is a big lesson also for California, as we will show later, meaning that, of course, the operator can invest himself in the train sets and can also provide, help in raising some debt for financing the rest. Now, this was the experience in France, but the experience is worldwide. And to begin with, in Europe, we have 7 JVs, 6 of which I mentioned earlier, with all our neighbors. To begin with Great Britain, with Eurostar, with Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Thalys, and with all of the neighboring countries. Special is NTV. NTV is a new Italian firm which plans to be operating at the end of 2011 using AGVs at 218 miles per hour and being the first private operator, of which we now have a 20% stake. The core know-how taken from this experience is the yield management and pricing policy knowledge, and also for each country different solutions and different options, and also local jobs, of course. Now, outside France also, I mentioned a few, but we could expand on that greatly. In UK, in Spain, on the Madrid-Seville line, Madrid-Barcelona, Perpignan-Figueras, in Belgium, in Korea. In fact, we did all the studies and helped for the structure of the system. Engineers training. In fact, even today, we have French people who are in the control room. We did the maintenance facility. We still are doing some current studies. And we did all the testing and commissioning of the line. And we helped also Koreans to reduce their maintenance cost.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Just
now
one.
that Mr. Katz is back, he has a question.
Of course, and it was on the previous slide, but you don't have to go back. I just want to make sure, when you're talking about your partners, I just want to make sure that Anzabretta isn't one of them. I mean, in all seriousness, Anzabretta and Finmeccanica.
Pardon?
I want to make sure that neither Finmeccanica or Anzabretta are one of your partners.
Here, NTV is primarily, I don't know exactly, but it's basically Ferrari. And they have a Ferrari red train set, which will be running at 218 miles per hour.
Okay.
That is a L.A. issue, has nothing to do with the high-speed rail.
Well, it'll have an issue for us if they try and bid up here. Sorry.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Korea, I was talking about Korea, where we did all the testing and commissioning of the line, and we did the same in Taiwan, where we also did the engineers training and some oversight. And even in China, I didn't mention the first line in China, we had 5-team people for many months. And we are currently participating in the efforts in Saudi Arabia, Morocco, and Portugal. So how relevant is all that for California? Project criteria. Now, of course, to make the project on time, and I mean the records in France are very good on that. Construction and rolling stock costs, of course, mastered. To do it on performance, there are a number of experiences around of projects which were never able or took many years more than expected to be able to run at the projected performance. So performance means, of course, the top speed and the average commercial speed. And top speed is not the record you can achieve. I mean, for that we have achieved 357 in 2007. But the commercial top speed and the commercial average speed. Of course, all this is important for revenue projection, and they need also to be reliable. This is critical for the ability to borrow money, and also are the operating costs. KPIs, I mentioned a few, like rolling stock cost per seat, rolling stock mileage per year, just to give you an idea. One TGV, our fleet of over 500 train sets, covers each train set, each of the 500, covers more than once around the world per month. Annual revenue per seat, and here it is something which is hard to get, but it's interesting to compare the different operations around the world here. Quality and performance, of course, are key KPIs. Now, objectives, I mentioned a few, but to maximize revenue and not only the promise, to find benefit sharing mechanism. I didn't elaborate on that, but for instance, the Keolis experience in Britain is key in how you get private contractors to step in and also make sure that as a private company, they do not take too much advantage of the money they can make. So you need to define some benefit sharing mechanism so that the public body get the right share of these projects. So in short, a long and worldwide experience and expertise to help reach adequate level technically and put together the best service for the money. Now, 20 years of experience. Safety record, 0 fatality in 28 years of high-speed operation. So 28 is more than 186, is more than 20 because we started at 162 back in 1981. And we enjoyed 1.5 billion passengers overall. So you need to have the right minimum engineering and the right operation. But on the other side, you don't want to have a misplaced savings. There are also some experiences around of projects where, just to save a couple of millions, they decided not to have a backup in signaling. And in fact, this delayed the entire operation by 2 or 3 years. So, the right minimum, but no misplaced savings, and no over-engineering either. And we have also some good examples of over-engineering, primarily in the Channel Tunnel, for instance. So the lessons learned, even for ourselves, we have some experience in ballast. For instance, the first ballast which was put in the southeast line was too soft. So now we have a critical homologation for the ballast to put on these lines. Wind, for instance, we know that as soon as the wind is higher than a determined level, we need to slow down the train, otherwise we have problems with the overhead catenary. Access for infrastructure works, I could elaborate on this, but I know we are short on time, so I will just move on. Financing. So, taken from the studies which have already been made in California, currently the capital expenses are expected to be around $37.6 billion in 2009 dollars, with a split as shown, with land acquisition, infrastructure, system, stations and building, and rolling stock. And rolling stock includes the maintenance shops. Now, this is not meant to be read, but the idea is that there was a study which was made by SNCF and put in the RFEI answer to the FRA, in which we looked closer at things. And so, for instance, on the bottom right, you have the number of units we think would be necessary with a calendar. So it goes up to 238 train sets, which is, I mean, a real big operation. And there's a projection of the capital needed along the time in this quick study. So it shows, of course, that there are huge amounts, but it varies very much upon the years.
Excuse me, on that slide, if I could, sorry to make you go back, but the so it is estimated that the ultimate fleet size would be 238 vehicles. How many?
Train sets, yes. One train set is 2 power engines. I mean, it's 10 vehicles.
Okay.
Sorry, yes.
So presently, how many train sets do you have?
SNCF?
Yes, operating in France.
Operating is over 500.
Is that right?
So in one shot, it's half the current total SNCF operation.
I see.
And it's, for instance, far, far bigger than Eurostar, Thalys, or any other single one.
Thank you. Well, but also, what percentage of those are double-decker?
In France?
Yes.
Approximately one-fifth.
One-fifth. So that's pretty much what the replacement vehicle is?
Basically, yes.
Is the two-tiered...
Although there's currently something changing. As I mentioned, RFF, the public body, which is in fact owning the infrastructure, yes, and trying to make the most money out of the high-speed rail operation.
Yes.
They have decided first to increase the tolls outrageously. I mean, incredibly. It's in fact almost killing the operation. In 2007, we were paying 31% of the fare box revenues just for tolls, and this is supposed to increase to 50%. And we think, I mean, this is killing just the thing. And second, they have planned to change the way they will charge, so that it is more charged by the number of seats per train set rather than the number of train sets.
So you're discouraged for having
exactly
seats. Yeah.
So in the approach by SNCF in the RFEI response, so and this was again a fairly quick study, but what is extremely important that we expect to have a very early profitable operation with a positive EBITDA starting already in fiscal year 2011, and of course showing big profits thereafter, and 1.7 billion in 2030. And of course this is very important for the financing of the overall project. So this is
the slide which is connecting with the previous one we saw with the TGV East. And basically what it shows is with this positive, of course, operation very quickly, first of all, the operator is able to finance normally a big part himself of the train sets. This is the part you see in blue here, which is 17%. So 17%, if you take 17% of 37.6 billion, this is roughly $6.4 billion of the train sets. So this is not the entire fleet, but it is most of it. Now, because the revenues are very high and we are confident we can convince bankers and other investors, we think it is reasonable to expect to raise debt from the project directly. And this is the 26% part in dark red. And this is $9.8 billion. So this is leaving to public money the yellow part, which is 57%, and this is $21.4 billion. Of course, this is a very quick study. This needs to be expanded. And we propose for that the creation of a special purpose company, which has been, there are examples of that for other PPPs. This can take many forms, and it is not exactly the subject of the presentation today to expand on that, but I think it is, of course, critical to study that much deeper. And we know that the California and federal law permit a lot of creativity in this issue. And here, again, in the RFEI response, a scheme has been drawn as how this could be done with the authority, the California High-Speed Rail Authority, responsible for the project. A special purpose company owns and manages the assets, and then there is a general contractor for the infrastructure, and then a high-speed rail operating company. And I could not remove the SNCF mentioned here in the operating company, because of course this is where we would expect to be awarded this operation, but this has to be, of course, an open process. What can the private sector bring? Of course, what is key at the early stage is to achieve a very high level of confidence in all the numbers. The numbers for capital expenses, for the revenues, and for the O&M costs. And this is where, of course, you need to prove that you will not have bad surprise in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now, where you have to replace early the train sets or things like that. And of course, it's better to have a very long-term experience for that. To propose some risk-sharing mechanism among the parties, to have respective commitments from the respective parties. Now, there are two different approaches. One is to have an overall package for the entire thing, design, build, operate, and maintain. And the other one is to have separate tenders for design and build on one side and O&M on the other, with, we think, the early operator involvement. And, for instance, with O&M, we could expect the operator to buy the train sets, as I mentioned, and also to be in charge of its maintenance. So major issues are, of course, risk sharing and profit sharing. Last item, dealing with freight railroads. I mean, this is fairly well known, I guess. Main issues are liability. I heard at the Railway Age Conference in Washington 2 weeks ago from someone who was apparently an expert that this issue is supposed to be solved, at least theoretically. Capacity issue for the railroads. I mean, they are very clear about that, but I don't think it would be an issue in California. And safety, of course, is how to cope with right-of-way sharing, because this is what is planned for California. And here, there has been already some study in the States, and we are confident that the appropriate level of safety can be achieved. There was a safety which was done in 1994 for the FRA, which gives, of course, guidance for ground transportation systems about intrusion barrier design devices, and we think that, of course, it has to be studied maybe again and proven, but we are confident this can be achieved fairly easily. And with this, I end my formal presentation and am open to your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions of board members? Yes, Mr. Kopp.
How is that Paris to Strasbourg line doing financially now?
Financially, first, the costs were higher than originally expected. It was the first time that it was totally split between RFF and SNCF. The first line, Paris to Lyon, it was entirely an SNCF project, including construction, infrastructure. In fact, we even did specifications and detailed plans for the rolling stock. So in fact, the TGVs today are built under plans from SNCF originally. So the TGV line is doing better than expected in terms of revenues, and in fact, we are short of train sets. So financially, it has cost more, a little more than what was originally planned, and it's a great operational and commercial success.
Okay.
Very good. I don't know if my level of knowledge that has been increased over the last couple months is more or less than board members, but I do, in fact, when the discussion of tolls is being made, SNCF originally owned the rails and owned the operation itself. And with changes within the European Union, and all countries will face this, there is a segregation now of the rail ownership within each country and the operation on those rails. So SNCF is the operator, and RFF is the owner of the rails. Therefore, RFF is who charges tolls, and since you are the only operator presently, they're charging them to you. But they will also be charging those tolls to any other operator who comes into France to provide that service. Is that right?
Exactly. Which is raising a big question because they are so high that no one dares to come in.
When will others be welcome to come in?
Oh, they are welcome from next year. But we know that, for instance, only the Italians have asked for paths and only 2 round trips.
I see. So there may be multiple routes or just small routes, but in fact, you'll be open for foreign providers to come in to France in 2010?
Yes.
And is it a requirement then to have within the European Union that access by 2010 or by 2012?
I think it's 2010.
Okay. Very good. I think that is an interesting model then to see how the ownership of the rail versus the operation and how welcoming and active and competitive that really turns out to be.
Right. In fact, when the change was made in France, originally, as you mentioned, SNCF did everything, but also had the whole debt, including the infrastructure debt.
Yes.
So when RFF was created, all the debt related to infrastructure was transferred to them, and it was a major part. And now they are trying to pay this back, and we remained only with the debt coming from the rolling stock. See, so this is why they are trying to make more and more money from that.
I see. Very good. Any further questions? Mr. Dearden.
Mr. Chairman, your comments were very appreciated, but that approach would augur in favor of a design-build contract followed by a separate operate and maintain contract.
Correct.
Probably. And the operate and maintain contract may be in bits and pieces or in total, and as with the design build, which is what we're looking at now. So we may be in the right direction.
Yeah. We suggest, of course, to have a very early operator involvement, and through maybe potentially through this special purpose vehicle, because of course you need to very early on make sure that everything is right in your infrastructure design and construction, because we have all kinds of examples around the world where if you do not have this oversight and proper design, of course, you may have very bad surprises, which of course can change the entire finance aspect.
That poses a kind of a chicken or egg, because we'll be looking forward to rolling stock manufacturer involvement as an advisory function, but we don't know which rolling stock manufacturer we're going to be working with. So we're going to have to look at some kind of a average specifications or overall master specifications that would accommodate. Tony is saying no to that, but I don't know how we're going to do that. There's a chicken or egg relationship that's going to possibly slow us down, and we can't afford any delays.
Yeah, I didn't mention, but SNCF has the experience of running all kinds of train sets, because we are running ICEs, the German trains, Hitachis in Great Britain. We are running, in fact, the only commuter rail high-speed on the British line between Ashford, Canterbury, and London, and this is on Hitachi train sets. And of course, with our engineers having trained the Taiwanese ones and the Koreans ones, but in Taiwan, we have the experience of the Japanese trains also.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brings us to the end of our agenda. Any further business to come before the Authority Board? Now, ma'am, did you submit a card?
I did.
And I'll be glad to ask you to make your 3-minute presentation, but in the future, our public comments are at the beginning of the meeting, and if there is a specific item you wish to speak on, you also can reference that. So, yes, ma'am. You're Kathy?
I'm Kathy Hamilton. The reason
Hamilton.
I'm late, and
Yes,
I do
ma'am.
apologize, was there was big traffic accident on 880, and it took me 45 minutes to go 5 miles.
Yes, ma'am.
So I just wanted to say that I represent a neighborhood group of about
Sorry, I didn't see how fast you were.
about 150 people.
Yes.
And we have been following the alternative analysis process and have gone to the workshops. And we were kind of disturbed in that there was only design options offered, and in fact only vertical design options and not horizontal. The biggest hole was the fact that there were no project alternatives offered at the time. We're asking that the route be re-examined as part of the alternatives analysis, consider some of the most viable, such as Altamont. And I ask this because, first of all, Mr. Katz had warned that you shouldn't have no alternatives, because then a proposed alternative, if it's the only one, it's not really very proposed. And I want to say that both CEQA and the July 2009 program summary support non-exclusive examination of routes that are feasible, reasonable to avoid impacts. And also the Attorney General's September 17th letter to Mehdi Morshed that said that the Trans-Bay Terminal was only a preferred terminus, and that further study needed to be done under the project level EIR, EIS, and improperly restraining the project alternatives or restraining them prematurely would risk future legal actions. And that is in the spirit that I ask for other alternatives to be examined. And I also, since the alternatives analysis draft is coming out in December, and I ask, just as you had granted the large utility operations extra time, that it's during Christmas and New Year's, and we ask for another 30 days, just as you granted the other group. And I leave you with the following question. If a route is only preferred, not final or predetermined, why are no other routes being considered? That's all.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing
Thank
your
you very much. And I have a letter that I'll leave for each of you.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you. And you can leave it with Carrie right here. She can accept that from you. Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Any further business to come before the authority? Seeing none, we stand adjourned until our December meeting.